If the fence rests, let's lay it down. Gonna dig deep, wave that verdict round. The defense rests, time to analyze. With the evidence, we'll unveil the crime. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.
Hello. I do believe. Oh, why can I see myself on there? I don't want that. Ooh, that's nasty. I do believe the planets have not aligned. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Well, I don't think we were meant to play that stream just quietly. Given all the stuff, the technical shit we were going through before it, and then it wasn't a copyright strike. It was an email I got saying that YouTube had detected a copyright issue and had interrupted the stream. And then when I went back into my YouTube studio to work out, because normally they send you a message in your studio to say, this is what the problem is, this is the area, what are you going to do about it? And it came back with nothing. So I have no idea. I have no idea. And I probably never will. So we're up to the closing arguments this morning for Collin Griffith. So we may as well get into them. And I'm still waiting for that. No, it wasn't meant to be, though. We will redo it. We'll do it for next Tuesday. And yeah, we'll need to sort out. We need to have the same programs to be able to communicate with one another. Because I just can't read. I don't have PowerPoint, so I can't read Tan's programs when she sends it over to me. So it's useless. And I'm not that computer literate. So just can't do it. All right. So we may as well get into closing arguments. And then hopefully the next stream is the new trial. Because I've been looking for it everywhere. The Megan Boswell. I know they've picked the jury. I found that one. But I can't find day one. So whilst we're watching this, I shall keep looking. All right, queued up, ready to go. Wrong layout. Is it that one? Yeah, I don't care. I'm past caring now.
As I mentioned at the end of the day yesterday, both the state and the
defendant have
rested their cases. The attorneys will now have the opportunity, if they wish, to make a closing argument. Please remember that what the attorneys say is not evidence, nor is it your instruction on the law. However, do pay close attention to what they have to say. Their arguments are intended to aid you in understanding this case.
Oh, there's a message
Each
down
side
there.
will have equal opportunity, but the state is entitled to divide its argument between an opening and a rebuttal after the defendant has given a closing argument. Does the state wish to give a closing argument?
I do, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, the brutality and the carnage that Collin Griffith unloaded on his mom on September 8th of 2024 is as real as it gets. First, I'd like to thank you for not only being here, but for your attention. When you came to jury selection, you had no idea what type of case you might encounter. Would it be a petty theft, a DUI? But what you ultimately heard and sat on was a first-degree murder case with the second count of kidnapping. So to hear and see what you had to go through is not something that jurors see every day. And most certainly most people never think about or see. But you've heard and seen the evidence And later this morning into the afternoon, you will be doing what you came here to do. And that is to dispense the ultimate form of justice. Not because I'm asking you to do this or suggesting you do this, but based upon the facts and the evidence, the defendant sits there, a guilty person who stabbed his own mother in the neck and then watched her bleed out in front of him. The lady that brought him into this world here on earth, he took out of this world and this earth. But see, at the end of this, he has to watch you come back through those doors. And he has to stand and he has to listen to the verdict. And that verdict is out of my control. It's out of their control. It is 100% in your control. And I have faith and confidence based upon what you heard and saw that you will do the right thing and you will hold him accountable for the fury he unleashed on his mom. Because the cold hard facts and the reality is quite unthinkable when you really think about it. The reality of what that person did to his mom is a second-by-second nightmare for her. She left this world knowing that the person that took her out was the son that she gave everything to. When you're in the quietness and the privacy of the jury room, I want you to take a close look at that knife. And remember, each inch that knife went flying through Kathy Griffith's neck, through each part of her human anatomy that Dr. Graham described. Because the reality of it, there isn't just a defendant and a victim and this happened and that happened, but the reality of it, for what the defendants accomplished, which is exactly what he wanted to do for so long. The writing was on the wall, ladies and gentlemen. The writing was on the wall. The defendant knew what he wanted to do, and it was just a matter of time. Why? Why did he have such deep-seated hatred for his mom? The lady that was just concerned about him making it to Domino's to work his 4 o'clock shift on Sunday. That's all that she wanted. They can say whatever they want about Kathy Griffith. It's all right. I'm not afraid. You shouldn't be afraid either. Because on Sunday, September 8th, Kathy Griffith did no harm, meant no harm to her son, Collin Griffith. She had one objective only that cost her her life. And I don't know if it's sad or if it's admirable, but she knew and was willing to die and knew she would die at the hands of her son just to spend some more time with him. We heard from Detective Lacey Zenoniani that Kathy Griffith literally said she knew she would die, but as long as it meant that she could spend some more time with her son, it was worth it to her. And what thanks did Kathy Griffith get from her son? What thanks did she get? She got a foot-long butcher knife rammed into her neck. And you heard the pathway of destruction. Feeling everything through her neck, through those neck muscles, through the esophagus, through the trachea, through the cartilage, and on and on and on, as it ripped through her neck, and the shock and pain going through her body as the defendant was happy. As he followed through with what he said he would do. If nothing else, he's a man of his word. He said he would kill his mom, and he took her out. But you know what? Now he's in a court of law. Now he has to suffer whatever comes his way in the form of a verdict. And that verdict is guilty. That's guilty for what he did to his mom. As she's on the floor trying to get up, but she can't get up. She's got a gaping, open wound in her neck, compliments of her son. Thanks, Collin Griffith. Appreciate that. Kathy, who was literally dusting off his domino shoes, doing his laundry, buying him Starbucks, taking him to the movies, buying him things, getting him a phone, a computer. Now, yes, these are things that you would hope a mom would do, but not.
And then taking them all off again.
Whatever issues Kathy had, she didn't lack for love of her son.
Really?
She wasn't there to do him harm on September 8th.
No, she was doing him harm all his life.
Her motives were for Collin Griffith to return to her household by 10 a.m. Sunday. That's all she wanted. She wanted her son,
At any cost.
so she was dusting off his domino shoes and making sure that he had a clean
morning,
uniform
yeah.
to be home in time to go to work. That's all she wanted.
You missed the shit show.
The clock was ticking. Once he turned 18, she knew he was gone. He wanted nothing to do with her. He had told her flat out he wanted to kill her. He had attacked her before. He had already killed somebody in Oklahoma. And she knew what was going to happen to her. But despite that, all that she wanted was every single minute she could have with her son. Well,
Nah.
she got
No, I'm just
the last seconds of her life.
This is the second stream. Tan and I have had heaps and heaps of issues with the Random Tuesday stream that we had planned. Tan's internet went down at the last minute, and my computer wouldn't read her computer program for the presentation, and then we got a copyright and shut down. So it's just not been a good day. Never mind. So we're at closing arguments in the Griffith case. And I cannot find a single thing on Megan Boswell anywhere.
With her son, as he watched on, as she gushed blood out of her open, gaping wound. The death was not instantaneous. She bled internally. She bled externally. She was fighting to get up. You see her arm finally comes underneath the island. And there comes a certain point, ladies and gentlemen, where that last drop of blood came out of her, where she took her last breath, and she died and left this earth knowing that her son butchered her. And that's the reality of it. You take a look at that knife and you'll know what it went through, who it went through, who was holding it, what their intention was, and what they wanted to do. Operation Kill Mom accomplished. That's exactly what Collin Griffith did. There's a little PowerPoint here for some things to look at, for you to remember when you deliberate. September 8th, 2024, Kathy Griffith was murdered by Collin Griffith. That's as simple as it gets. But going back the year earlier, the first person the defendant killed before he killed Kathy Griffith, he killed that person when he shot that person 2 times with a handgun, once in the chest and once in the head. Now you'll remember the importance of that as we continue on. You'll recall when they downloaded the defendant's phone and they saw something on September 8th that Kathy texted Collin. Now, Collin Griffith didn't need a reason or an excuse to be mad at his mom. You've heard through so many witnesses, law enforcement, countless witnesses, that the defendant explicitly verbalized that he would kill his mom. Not only that, but he thought about different ways to accomplish that. And a reoccurring theme was that he would stab her. You don't have to guess what he was thinking or what he wanted to do. You heard from multiple law enforcement officers the defendant's statements about that he would kill his mom. And when they asked how, he gave a plethora of ways, including throwing her out of a car, shooting her, but stabbing her was a reoccurring theme. For whatever reason, the defendant got off on that. And you will recall that the defendant's anger towards his mom, it was already over brimming. But his anger was just intensified when on Sunday, September 8th, the last day of Kathy's life, she wrote the following to Collin. Mind you, her only intention, despite all these threats that she didn't want to have to carry through with, was to get the defendant home. That's it. But she wrote to him, Collin, the recordings of you admitting to killing, and then she wrote the person's name, and planning the murder, there are 4 different instances from my Ring camera, are all going to Bob, Susie, Amanda, and Chris at 3 p.m. today. Plus the recovered audio from Chuck's iCloud, where you told your dad you hated me and I was an evil bitch, are being sent too. Let's stop for a minute. The defendant called and thinks his mom was an evil bitch. That has just so much malice and hatred, once again, to the lady.
I found there is a thing saying that they have chosen 17 jurors. They've been chosen, but I can't find a stream anywhere. And that other bloody one, the socialite, the reason that they're only showing bits and pieces of it is because of the ASAP bloody trial. So I managed to find an audio of one of the one of the witnesses. But it's just been a shit show in there too. Yeah.
That was trying to do everything she could. I mean, God, we saw Ring videos. She's cleaning all the time. She's doing laundry. She makes sure that his house is stocked with food. She has clean clothes for him. He has his own room.
Poor
He has
Tan
his own Xbox.
worked so hard on
computers,
that
cell phone.
presentation.
She's giving him the credit card to go to Starbucks to buy sandwiches and drinks, taking him to the movies, anything and everything to make him happy. And you know what kind of thanks she got? Thanks to Collin Griffith, stand-up guy that he is. And then what did she expect from him? Did she expect for him to be remodeling the house or doing all this work? No. She wanted minimal things. She wanted respect, as any mother deserved. She wanted the defendant to pick up a damn finger and do some chores, to weed whack the backyard. Was it 10 acres of property that she wanted him to go outside in the 90-degree weather and push a lawnmower? No. It was a nice, modest backyard that she wanted the defendant
how he
to take care of
underplays
some business, like the
everything.
man he was supposed to turn into. But if it interfered, God forbid, with him playing video games
Oh, really?
or him taking his walk, then piss on his mom. That was his attitude. It's 100% his attitude. He didn't want to be bothered. She wanted him to put up a bookshelf.
I don't like this attorney.
The defendant didn't want to do it. She wanted him to clean up the room because there were a bunch of ants and cockroaches that were crawling around Collin Griffith's candy bags, but it might interfere with him getting some fresh air. So he just blew her off. Day after day, time after time, the defendant wanted to do nothing but what he wanted to do. And you know what? Life would go on if that was the worst of his ways. But he also had that hatred. So every time his mom would ask him to do something reasonable, that hatred would rim.
Reasonable?
He has told you what he thinks.
Not
of
a
his
word
mom,
I'd use for her.
that
But
she is an evil bitch. This is what he's saying about his own mom who brought him into this world, his own flesh and blood, and that's what he thinks of her.
I don't know. Some people might enjoy that, but
Kathy continues on.
not me.
My dad is sending me his recordings of you telling him how you planned my murder back in February. Audio, video, email, text, and phone records are all being sent. So we continue on with the PowerPoint. This is the last day of Kathy Griffith's life. The defendant's life would go on, but Kathy Griffith would cease to exist here on this earth. And there she is on Sunday, unsuspecting the violence that would be coming her way from her son. It should have been just another Sunday afternoon. Should she have not gone over there? Should Collin have gone somewhere else? You know, these questions really don't matter because the reality is what happened. She said there are two things that are going to happen. He's either going to come home with me,
Hello?
or he can follow in his own car.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
You'll have to put me on stage because
I have.
oh, you have. Cool.
Oh, you poor bugger. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
But
I know how much work you put into that, and it's just fucking.
with my internet going down, and then NBN's supposed to be here yesterday, and then they sent me a text like at 6 o'clock saying, "Sorry, too hot. Haven't got enough people. Can't come." Like, oh, great. Yeah, so I was lucky I did have that. Got it on our Yeah. Did you find out why they cut us off?
No. Oh, did you get the email I sent you?
I got a text you sent me.
Showing the copyright thing. I think I emailed.
Oh, right. Okay, I'll have a look at my email.
But I've gone onto my YouTube studio and there is nothing at all. So I don't know what's going on. Normally they flag that video and tell you what your copyright infringement was and at what timestamps you've got to sort it out. But there's nothing. It's saying there's no issues at all. I don't know what they're going on about.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't tell you nothing in that.
No. They shut the stream down.
Yeah, I just went and watched the end of it to see like what happened when it cut off, kind of thing. I'd never seen that before.
And what part did it end at?
It was during that video, yeah.
Yeah.
Or do you think it might have been the drugs and that?
No.
Oh,
I don't think so. I've never had it happen before, ever, like that, where it shut down the stream.
Oh, I got the
So-
same email.
So
It said here,
don't
after
call-
copyright material is no longer being streamed, streams are automatically re-enabled.
yeah, but it didn't tell me what copyright things
Yeah.
it was. So Udahef can't say hotties, but Elizabeth can say cunt cake. Is that is that what you're saying? You can't type hotties anymore in chat. You have to type it like this. Type it like this. There you go. We all know what you mean then.
We'll know what you mean. Yeah.
I'm gonna beat his ass. I'm gonna stab him. I'm gonna shoot him. I'm gonna do any of that stuff.
I really
She
don't
wanted
like
to
this.
go over there and bring him back. She didn't want to have to go drive 2.5 hours over there. It would have been real simple if the defendant just came home. But once again, that's beside the point, because the reality is, that's the way life is.
Yeah.
But she wanted to accomplish one thing: to have the defendant come home. She did nothing to him. No violence, no threats, nothing. That was it. She even told her mom, one of the last conversations was when she got over there,
Haughty.
if he
Yeah, that's a good
refused to
one.
come, then she would call the police. So there's Kathy wearing the exact clothes that she changed into that she would die in. She was a big fan of coffee. The shirt she was wearing said something about.
He still hasn't told me what Udahef stands for.
Kind of like the motto, live free or die.
Well,
So
doesn't it mean who the F?
Well, that's what I thought, but the second bit that doesn't make sense.
Oh. Udahef hit you.
I just, I don't. Udahef.
Are you?
No, it's not computing.
Hit you.
With her black t-shirt and her jean shorts and her black Under Armour flip-flops.
It's got to
You
be.
gotta say it fast.
I know. I asked him a long time ago, and he said, "Nah, he was having too much fun me trying to work it out." Yeah,
Interestingly
see.
enough, if you called one of the ladies,
I'll just tell him his real name. I'll start calling him his real name.
But they said when she got out in the car that she threw her bag over her shoulder and she went up to the house, which is exactly how it appears that she carried her bag. The same bag, ladies and gentlemen, that she was holding when the defendant attacked her and stabbed her in the neck. The same bag that got blood all over it.
Oh, get what's the name on there? Who used to say that?
Pauline Hanson.
Pauline, get her on there. Please explain.
Don't like it. Don't like it.
Daddy has my social security number and address.
Have you short and curlies?
Keys and everything else that fell on the ground when the defendant attacked her. Does that sound like a lady who's attacking the defendant with their bag over their shoulder, holding their car keys and their charger? Of course not, because it didn't happen that way. And
see, if I knew my real grandfather's name, I'd be able to have a social security number in America, a green card.
Really?
Yeah.
I was having this conversation with my daughter the other day. Just now you said that.
Okay.
No, I don't. You don't have any dirt. Oh, speaking of dirt, did you view my field trip?
And into the garden.
No. I did a I was out in the field, Udahef, of my backyard, and there's some poignant questions on plants that I was asking you.
That's when Millie came out to me. He was watching your channel, and I was only listening.
Hang on one sec. There is a game on Discord that does that, Tricia.
We'd all lose that one.
And you put in your answers to the questions, and we all have to guess them. Yeah, no, I did an impromptu garden walk the other night, around my garden. and I had a couple of issues with plants. Yeah, sorry, go on. Dan?
Oh,
What were you
yeah,
going to
Millie called me and said he was watching, and Jodie's got something wrong because she's out in the garden. He said to me, I went, what?
say? No.
So I've turned it on Nia out in the garden. I said, leave her
Yeah.
alone. She's connecting snails for the blue tongue, which actually he said
Who
he
needs
shouldn't
more?
need.
No.
No, the lizard will take a long time to eat all those snails you gave me.
Right, okay. That was 10 minutes work.
Oh my God.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Kathy never returned to that house. That house that she kept immaculately clean. Kathy went off with her bag over her shoulder.
Yeah, I've got more dirt on
A
Elizabeth
stock
than you would have.
fridge, stock snacks, clean,
Actually,
everything out of place.
everyone knows
Keeping a
Elizabeth's
clean, safe, loving environment for Collin. Did Kathy have issues? She did. But she's a human being. You heard about her history.
So what
She
is
had to be
this?
there.
Is this the
Would that mean she should be stabbed?
closing
knuckles beat out by
arguments
her own
or
son?
what?
Of course not. That's why he needs to be held
Oh, right.
responsible. So this fancy overhead picture. What is the importance of this? Well, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the jury instructions. I'm not going to go into a bunch of jury instructions. You're going to hear those. They're very important. They're long, but I'm going to hit you with two quick things. The first degree murder and the kidnapping.
So this is the teenager.
That stabbed his mother.
Well, she fell on a knife, yeah.
Oh, that's right. When he rang the 911 call, I remember listening to that. No, yeah, I watched some of it. Yeah.
And 12 months before that, got his father. But he's pleading self-defense in this. And they played a lot of like she's a nutbag.
Oh, okay.
Absolute nutbag. Sorry. I shoved to kill a python in my mouth.
Oh, speaking of that, I'm just going to move my picture off so I can go get some food.
And massive manipulating control freak had ring cameras in every room, including his bedroom, was on him, like harassing him 24/7.
What
He
about?
went to, anything, everything.
Oh, right, okay.
He goes to his grandmother's to get away, and she starts ringing him, her, like I'm talking every minute. And in between that, she's texting them. In between that, she's getting onto his GPS sat nav and saying, "I know where you are. I can see what you're doing. I'm selling your car if you're not here.
Oh my God.
She cut his phone contract off.
Why? What did you do? Except kill his father.
He wasn't there. He didn't come
Oh,
home.
okay.
He went to his grandmother's for a break. She was just ridiculous. And the way she spoke to her mother too. So her mother actually hired an attorney for him to help protect him.
Oh, really?
Because the mother, because he was underage, he was only 17, she owned the phone. He can't have it as an asset. So as a guardian, she has a right to access what's on that phone. But the issue is she accessed his conversations between him and his attorney, and that's privileged. And they spent a day and a half arguing whether or not they actually were entitled to see that info. She was actually entitled to see that information, A, because of the privilege, and B, because she was the one that they were talking about. And at what point is she supposed to facilitate having him be allowed to speak to his attorney? You know what I mean? So yeah, it's been a big. I believe that he's been absolutely harassed his entire life and worn down, basically. It's like battered wife syndrome, but it's called battered child
Like
syndrome.
my relationship with my mother.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sounds interesting.
Yeah. Yep. We should have a discussion debate stream about it. I think they said she was entitled. to see it as his mum, but it wasn't allowed in court because yes.
Look at this picture. This is where Collin Griffith.
So this prosecutor is making out to him to be an entitled fucking teenager that's just had his Xbox taken off him, but he hasn't.
murdered his mom.
Why did he kill his father and how?
This is where Collin Griffith
Shot him.
stabbed his mom and killed
Don't
her.
know why, but shot him in the chest and the head,
You see the entryway.
and the charges were
You see the
dropped.
carport. Now you'll recall that Miss Sally Bell, the lady getting ready for church, lived right here. Nancy Jones lived here. Nancy Jones had a more obstructive view just because of the sheer angle of it. This corner here of Susan Detman's house prevented her from actually seeing what was going on. But she did see the defendant reach out, grab Kathy, and pull her in. Now, Sally Bell had a much clearer view. Sally Bell, time is important, okay? Time is important. You guys like a good timeline, and you have a pretty good timeline. Sally Bell goes to church religiously, no pun intended. She gets ready, she leaves roughly a little before 5 o'clock. Every Sunday, her and her husband get ready, they go to church. The defendant wasn't going to church on Sunday, he was getting ready to murder his mom. So Sally Bell, she sees the defendant after Kathy comes over, and is Kathy mad? Is she happy? Of course she's not happy. That doesn't mean she's being violent, and she wasn't violent. She was moving her hands. Sally made it clear. It wasn't threatening or violent or physical. She was animated, moving her hands as she was talking. And she wanted her son to come home. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So Sally saw and heard, and it was loud enough because she was inside
This,
looking out the front window.
hang on.
She saw the defendant grab his own mom. Remember, this isn't a stranger, which would be bad enough. He grabbed his own mom by the hair. You think she's an evil bitch.
So this defendant was requested to be Baker acted, like held against, you know what I mean, like held in a mental
Yep.
in preference to
Institution,
going
yeah.
home with his mother.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He wants to kill her. He's told people he's going to kill her. He's battered her and attacked her before on November 14th in Port Charlotte. And now he's just doing the same thing again. And his mom paid the price. But you know what? He's going to pay the price when you come back with the guilty verdict. He is going to pay the price because of your verdict. And he grabbed his mom by the hair, and she said, "Stop, stop, you're hurting me, let go." This is his mom begging and pleading for her own son to stop pulling her hair. Who does that? He does that, and he did it.
Why did he do that?
So what happens?
I can't put
Who's
the
being violent to who? I
chat
ask
up
you
on
that.
screen
Who
either,
is
Joe.
being violent to who? The mom
Pardon?
is not being violent in any way, shape, or form to her
What was
son.
that?
She is doing.
I can't put any of the chat up on
But
screen.
good old Collin Griffith
Okay.
grabs his mom and he yanks her, he pulls her, he drags her. Who cares what verb you want to use? The point of the story is that he pulled her and dragged her into the house. She didn't have a choice because her hair was being pulled and her head and her body was being dragged into the house. Why did the defendant do that? Because he was about to unleash and quench his bloodlust for his mom. He was going to accomplish what he wanted to do for whatever it was, weeks, months, a year.
What are you eating?
And his bloodlust was going to be quenched at the price and at the cost of his mom. And her dignity.
Not put my
and her
mic on
life.
while I'm eating this.
So why did he bring her inside? Well, it's quite clear why he brought her inside, to unleash additional violence on her. He wanted to isolate her. He didn't want witnesses to what he was about to do. Okay? That was roughly around 5 o'clock. Now, I want to tell you something. The 911 call was at 6:14. Okay? That is an hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to tell you something. They weren't talking or hanging out for an hour and 15 minutes. Quite the contrary. This was a powder keg that was exploding.
What's your definition of violent, though? What's your definition of domestic violence? Turn the role around. What if it was the father and a daughter? Would the attitude be different?
Yeah, and I mean, exactly. DV's not just
Mhm.
actually the physical
Nope.
part of it, it's the mental part of
Nope.
it that's the worst, I feel.
And here we go. Just some of the things I was having a look at. I'll have to move us over. I'll move that over. Right, so it's domestic abuse is any incident or controlling, coercive, or threatening behaviour, violence, or abuse between people in a domestic setting. Witnessing DVs. Domestic abuse can take many shapes, and it's important to remember that not all experiences will look the same in any type of relationship, regardless of gender or sexuality, and can continue even if that relationship is ended. Inside, outside the home, on the internet, over the phone, social media, blah, blah, blah. Most cases of domestic abuse are between partners or ex-partners. However, it can happen between family members who aren't necessarily in a relationship. It can include, so this is domestic abuse can be physical, verbal, emotional, sexual, financial, or psychological, including controlling or coercive behaviour. Now, don't tell me that she did not do that. Such as stopping someone from going out alone or controlling access to someone's phone. Let me see. Did she threaten to do that? No, she didn't threaten. She did threaten, but she did cut him off as well.
Didn't she?
Yep. Physical violence, such as hitting, kicking, or punching. Online or digital abuse, controlling someone's finances. Like withholding someone's money. Maybe selling their car out from under them. Harassment and stalking. Well, she definitely harassed him. Absolutely 100% harassed him. And CCTV ring camera in your bedroom? Nasty. Nasty. At what point she's texting him saying, I can see where you are. I've got you on your GPS. I know what you're doing. Constantly. Can you imagine having that constantly over your head? I'll go back and I'll replay the CCTV footage and we'll go through this because yeah, I just yeah.
Hour and 15 minutes after he killed his mom, connect the dots, do the math. But as soon as he pulled her inside, it was just the continuation of the beginning of the end. So for kidnapping, I'm going to start with count 2.
I'm not saying
Count 2.
I believe he's guilty of doing it. Absolutely. I'm just saying that he does have a self-defense defense, basically. I think his defense is valid.
This is what I have to
prove. He did do the wrong thing, absolutely.
3 elements. Collin Griffith
but he got let down by a lot of people.
Or secretly, or by threat, confined or abducted or imprisoned Catherine Griffith against her will. That's exactly what he did. He forcibly grabbed her by the hair and pulled her inside against her will. Did she enjoy that? Did she walk into that house voluntarily?
But there's also a difference between yelling at your kids like, oh, put that down, and abusing them all day and making them feel belittled and insignificant and, yeah.
When Collin dragged her inside, when, as she said in one of the videos, when he already beat her ass on a number of occasions, no, quite the contrary. He forcibly...
It wasn't about his game being taken away.
Against her will. So now Kathy knows what's going to happen. Maybe she doesn't know she's about to get killed, but she knows the violence that's about to happen. Because now the defendant has her all alone with no eyes to see, no neighbors to help, and he has her all alone. He's a lot bigger than her. He's a lot stronger than her. He weighs a lot more. He's younger than her. And she was alone. Now, this is no stranger to her. She shouldn't have had to have been afraid of her own son. But now the reality is he's dragged her in by the hair. She's begging for him to let go. But does he care? No. And he amps it up even more. He yanks her and pulls her so hard that, as we recall, in the mulch here is one of her AirPods. Boom. They go inside. She would, you know what? She never came out of that house again alive. She came out dead.
Mine too.
Dead, with no blood in her body.
I used to get welts of the buckle in the back of my legs.
Collin Griffith. This is the
But he
last time
denies
that
it
she
to
would
this
enter
day.
any place. And this is the pathway to further destruction. This is literally the trail to her death at the hands and the knife of Collin Griffith. He yanked her by the hair. She didn't stand a chance. He dragged her, pulled her, get out of the source, use whatever words you want to use, and he brought her, boom, through the living room. Her other AirPod falls out. This is the violence and the force that the defendant's doing.
Oh, no one's ever had
Not
the
only that,
earpod
she
fall
loses
out.
her AirPod case. And we know where this is headed. We know the path that this is headed.
Elizabeth and Teresa.
That house is immaculate. Susan Detman keeps an immaculate house. That is a fact. That is evidence. Susan Detman keeps an immaculate house. Kathy Griffith, her daughter, keeps an immaculate house. There's no signs of a long fight. Kathy Griffith was in no position or no desire to fight.
Really?
And
That's
the
not
defendant had all
what
the power,
the
all the
CCTV
sick,
footage
twisted
says.
power, all the strength, all the size to his
This is obviously the
short,
prosecutor.
defenseless, unarmed mom. Does that sound like a fair fight, or does that sound cowardly and violent? Well, that's what kept going on. There he is. That is the face of Collin Griffith after he murdered his mom. Those are the eyes that looked at his mom as he shoved that knife so deep in her neck that it literally came out the other side of her neck. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Collin Griffith. Collin Griffith dragged his mom over there. Collin Griffith in his
So
mind.
is this the prosecution closing
I
statement?
suppose move on to the premeditation part. I told you there were 3 elements of kidnapping. We've already hit the first one. Second one, Collin Griffith had no lawful authority to do so. Of course, he had no lawful authority to do so. You don't have lawful authority to batter somebody, to grab them by the hair against their will and yank them into a house so you can abuse them and violate them and destroy them more. Element 2 is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And third, Collin Griffith acted with intent to inflict bodily harm upon or to terrorize Catherine Griffith or to commit or facilitate the commission of any murder. That's a lot of words, but you'll take your time when you have the jury instructions. What did Collin Griffith do? He acted with the intent to harm Kathy Griffith, to physically destroy Kathy Griffith, to terrorize Kathy Griffith, and to kill Kathy Griffith. That third element is proved every which way possible. Because of that, ladies and gentlemen, the defendant is guilty of kidnapping. So when you deliberate and when you talk about the evidence and the law, and when you discuss amongst yourselves, and when you do the analysis, I submit to you that I have proven through the evidence that the defendant is guilty of kidnapping. But only if it could end there. Only if it could end there. Life would have gone on for Kathy Griffith. But it couldn't end there because of the defendant's conscious decisions. Because of his actions, it couldn't end there. Life could have gone on, but it didn't for Catherine Griffith because of what the defendant wanted to accomplish and what he didn't stop doing until he had accomplished it. And then to figure out, dang, what do I do now? But you get to see and hear everything that happened next. So we move on to first degree murder. That, once again, these aren't abstract concepts. This is the reality. That defendant reached into the butcher block and pulled out a knife. It probably made that sound when that metal comes out of the wooden butcher block. Well, Kathy didn't have her AirPods in, so she can hear crystal clear. And that knife comes sliding out of that butcher block. And Kathy would have known at that point that what the defendant had told her, what the defendant had told law enforcement, that he would kill her and stab her, that's how it was going to end for her. So the reality is the defendant pulled the knife. Picture doesn't quite do it justice. I'm not going to stand up here and hold the knife because you're going to look at it in the privacy and solitude of the jury room, and you're going to look at that knife and you're going to see firsthand where that knife has been and who put it there.
How big a knife was it?
So Kathy gets stabbed in the neck with such force. You know the pathway. You know everything that happened. You heard from Dr.
I don't
Garrett.
remember.
Very detailed
I don't know.
about
5 inches,
his
I think.
expertise.
Oh,
How many
okay.
countless stabbing cases he's worked. Never has it been an accident or somebody falling on a knife. The force that knife took, the things that it cut through, the open, gaping wound, her bleeding out to the last drop is gone. So, back on September 8th, 2024, after Kathy struggled to get up, struggled to do whatever somebody who's just about to die tries to do, knowing that their son just ensured their death. Mind you, this was at about 5 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen, because that's when Sally Bell saw the defendant yank his mom in by the hair. 5 o'clock. Yeah, it takes an hour and 14 minutes for the defendant to call 911. Yeah, it did. You're going to hear 2 clips. One is just the very intro. It establishes the time. It establishes the first words out of the defendant's mouth. Then you're going to hear the defendant's contradictory, absurd attempt at blaming Kathy Griffith for this.
Yeah, you're right, Elizabeth. I mean, they probably did know a lot. And I think that happens all over the world, that the children's services and
Right.
police know things, and either they don't do anything about it or they don't have the
For
resources to
first
do
degree
anything
murder, I
about
have to
it.
prove 3 things. Catherine Griffith is dead. That's an understatement. Number 2, the death was caused by
How
the
could it be an
criminal act
understatement? You're either dead
of
or you're
Collin
not.
Griffith.
Mhm.
It was a homicide by Collin Griffith, stabbing his mom in the neck and watching her and letting her and being happy that she bled out and died.
Yeah,
And
Elizabeth,
3,
you're
there
right.
was a premeditated killing of Catherine Griffith. Ladies and gentlemen, when the
Yeah.
defendant dragged her inside and dragged her to the back of the house to the kitchen, when he reached for the knife, when he pulled the knife out, think about it. Any step of the way, he could have thought to himself, you know what? This is messed up. I shouldn't be doing this. I can't be doing this. Yeah, I want to kill her, but this is my mom. You know what? Damn, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to do this. He had time to reflect. But his reflection was it Collin 1 or Collin 2? We'll get to that a little later. But
Column
his
1 or
reflection
column
was, yeah,
2?
I am going
What's
to
that about?
kill, I am going to stab this evil bitch.
Don't know.
And that's not me saying it. That's the defendant's own words. He showed his intentions by his actions and by his
Trying
words
to find the
and what he said he was going to
CCTV
do. He
footage.
was going to kill that evil bitch, his own mom. And so he did. So Kathy Griffith is laid out on the floor, has taken her last breath, has bled out her last drop of blood. Catherine Griffith has been murdered by Collin Griffith. The crime is over. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
There they are.
Now, not to complicate things, but there's another way that I can prove first-degree murder. And I submit to you, I've proved it both ways.
Ah, so
It's my
it's a
burden,
case
of
of
course, to prove the crimes
schizophrenia as
beyond
well?
reasonable doubt. But there's 2
Pardon?
different ways
Oh.
that I can prove
Well,
first-degree murder.
Udahef just
Both
said he told the
end
cops
with the same
column 2
result,
wouldn't
which is
do it,
guilty
but
of
column
first-degree
1
murder.
would and did.
The other way that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on
So
is
did he
called
have a,
first-degree
what's it
felony
called?
murder.
It's
I've
called
already shown you, ladies and gentlemen, why
schizophrenia,
the
but they
defendant is
call it
guilty
a
of premeditated
personality
first-degree murder.
disorder these days.
Bipolar.
Yeah,
I
that's it.
haven't seen any mental health stuff at all. No diagnosis. They did mention oppositional defiance disorder, but that was never, like, we haven't had a psych come up and say this is what he was diagnosed with. Don't know.
And why the defendant is guilty of kidnapping. So when you go back and deliberate, and when you fill out the verdict form,
Did I go backwards?
well, it might not be easy,
No.
and nothing is ever happy about sitting on a murder trial, but you'll know that you did the right thing based upon the evidence and based upon justice. So the defendant's guilty of first-degree murder, premeditated, and kidnapping. Another way that a prosecutor can prove first-degree murder is first-degree felony murder. And I'm going to tell you this first, little insight. In order to convict the defendant of first-degree felony murder, it is not necessary for the state to prove that Collin Griffith had a premeditated design or intent to kill. When you run through the 3 elements, Catherine Griffith is dead. That's number 1. Number 2, while engaged in the commission of a kidnapping, Collin Griffith caused the death of Catherine Griffith. And 3, Collin Griffith was the person who actually killed Collin Griffith. Her own flesh and blood brutalized her. We'll go to the 911
massive.
call, probably an hour or so after he had already murdered his mom.
18, 14, 11, 2nd, September 8, 2024. 911, what's the destiny emergency? I don't know.
Look at him standing there, all puffed up in the chest. Like, what the fuck?
Now, clip two. What I want you to notice
It
about
reminds
clip
me of
two,
someone. I'm
ladies
trying
and
to think who
gentlemen,
it is. Someone out of Game of Thrones.
An
is
ape.
that the
Mm.
911 operator
Could be that
asks a
too.
very clear, simple question. Listen, what caused the bleeding? And you're going to hear and see, and you probably remember that the defendant
fell
didn't
out of the
respond
knife.
for many, many seconds, maybe
Yeah.
6 seconds. He didn't respond. And the 911 operator said more emphatically, listen, what caused the bleeding? And then the defendant gave two diametrically opposed different explanations because he wasn't going to tell the truth about what happened. And he was certainly going to try to escape from the charges and blame his mom when he is the person that murdered his own mom. So the first thing he says is, she got into a fight. What do you mean she got into a fight? Like he's trying to distance himself from what actually happened. She got into a fight and she lunged at me with a knife and she fell on it. So that's his first explanation. He's painting a picture that his mom lunged at him with a knife, tripped, and somehow fell on the knife. That's preposterous. Not being disrespectful, but that's preposterous when you think about common sense and you think about physics and when you think about reality. That just didn't happen. The evidence is to the contrary, but that's his first statement, that she lunged at him with this knife and tripped, and she somehow falls on the knife. That didn't happen. Then the 911 operator says, where is the knife right now? And who did she get in a fight with? And then the defendant says something completely different because it's not the truth. The truth doesn't change. The truth is that the defendant stabbed his mom right in the neck, and then it ripped through and came out the other side. That's the reality of what happened. And then the defendant changes his story. He thinks he's helping himself by elaborating or trying to prove to himself what happened or prove to others. And then he changes his story. Instead of her lunging at him and falling on the knife, now he says, she came at me and we got into a fight for a long time. Then she got on top of me and fell on it. Twisted it back, whatever that means.
So listen, what caused the bleeding? Listen, what caused the bleeding? She got built and she looked at me and she fell on it. Where is the knife right now? And who did she get in a fight with? Came at me and we got to for a long time. Then we had a problem and fell on it.
Collin Griffith murdered his mom, ladies and gentlemen. This is a picture of Kathy Griffith with the person that murdered her son. This is a picture of Kathy Griffith alive and smiling and happy next to the same person that she knew was going to kill her. Yet she was willing to suffer and pay the ultimate price, that was her life, at the hands of her son in order to spend a little more time with him before she left this earth. So that person, Kathy Griffith, live, full of life, smiling and happy, turned into this person.
Life, smiling and happy?
Bleeding out on her mom's kitchen floor with her good old son.
He didn't sound like a happy person.
Watch her
No.
bleed out. And there's her Kate Spade backpack purse that was over her shoulder. Once again, you saw it over her shoulder in the video. You also heard from Nancy Jones that when Kathy went up to the house, she had her bag over her shoulder. And that bag got drenched in blood as it literally spurted out of the huge gaping hole in her neck, compliments of her son. When fire rescue shows up and law enforcement shows up, they say they can literally see through her neck. They can see into the organs in her neck.
What organs are in her neck?
Is the end result of Collin Griffith's hatred and violence towards his mom. A gaping hole from that knife.
I
And we
guess so.
saw that.
But is that an organ?
She doesn't stand a chance. She comes out of her Under Armour flip-flops. Her keys crash to the ground. Her purse crashes to the ground, falling off of her shoulder. Her charging cords fall to the ground.
Yeah, that's right. They can see her machinery.
She struggles to get up. You can see things she's grabbing onto.
Why can't we see the pictures he's showing?
Yeah, no, they showed nothing. Not even the CCTV.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And she takes her last breath. And she leaves this earth
Not one
knowing
thing.
that Collin Griffith, her own son, murdered her. I'll have a chance to talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, after the defenses with a much shorter wrap up. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. And when you come back through those doors, you should come back with nothing short of pure 100% justice. And that's finding the defendant guilty as charged of both counts for what he did to his mom on September 8th, 2024.
Where do they get the kidnapping stuff from? Like, okay, he dragged her inside, but how's that kidnapping?
Held against their will.
Oh, it's a bit of a
In
reach,
the
isn't it?
commission of a felony.
Yeah.
They look like they're at church.
They do, don't they? See how his tie matches her dress?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that snappy?
Thornhill?
I am a fan of olive green.
Yes, I don't
Seems
mind
like
olive
the state
green.
would like you to focus on the emotion and the drama rather than on the actual facts.
So is she a hottie or not,
More
Udaf?
in this case. What's your job as jurors? It's to
Doesn't have
decide
dark
whether the
curly
state
hair.
has proved beyond a reasonable doubt
I
that Collin kidnapped and murdered his mother,
thought he liked blondes too.
and that her death was not
I don't think he's actually
excusable or
fussy.
justified. That's your job.
Actually,
We start with the
we've got to
presumption
get
of
some goss off
innocence,
you to
as the
have
judge
too.
will remind you again when he reads the instructions. That means that you have to believe that Collin is innocent, unless and until the state can overcome that presumption with evidence beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt. Not
Well, she was dead and he did it.
say characterizations of how things might have happened, but actual facts.
Oh, lime green, Elizabeth. That's a bit 70s.
Interpretations of how you should look at various facts.
No, she has nice hair, but she's not a hottie, hey, Uda?
To decide what the facts are and what they mean.
No, because she's in defense.
And whether the state has used those facts beyond a reasonable doubt that Collin is guilty of anything.
Pink is my favourite colour, Teresia.
Been here for over a week now, and they presented a lot of exhibits and evidence. I'm not going to go through all of the witnesses and all of the exhibits.
I like teal or aqua, which I don't know.
I'll be back there in the jury room with you. So
some people call it teal, some call it aqua, but it's a bluey-green colour. More green than blue.
Even if they weren't all played.
That's a nice colour.
You can listen to things. You can watch the ring video. That will be up to you. Those are facts. The witnesses.
Yeah, even her mother
In a move
testified
that you
against
might
the
find
daughter.
surprising, I'm not going to argue to you that the state's witnesses were unreliable or that you shouldn't believe them, with one exception.
Her mother attested against who?
Most of the witnesses
The victim.
were pretty straightforward in answering the questions. You know, like I said, it's
What do you mean?
How to?
So the mother that he killed,
Yeah.
her mother, his grandmother, testified on his behalf about how bad he was.
Oh, okay. Did he have any siblings?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. Oh, I gotta go wee.
Interpret what they said.
Okay.
One exception, and it might not even matter in the long run to your inquiry, your decision, because for the most part, what the witnesses told you isn't in dispute. And that one exception is Robert Wolantis.
You could get behind the idea of it being a
I may
haughty.
have seemed harsh with him when I questioned him, and I apologize for that. I wouldn't wish the death of a child on anyone ever. But Mr. Wolantis wanted you to believe that he was very close with Kathy and with Collin, and that he was close enough with Collin that Collin confided in him several months before Kathy died. So how close was Robert Wolantis with Collin and Kathy? He was not invited to Kathy's celebration of life. He didn't even know that she hadn't been buried. If you recall him going on and on about how funerals are for those left behind. And that's not to say that, it's not to say anything bad about Mr. Wolantis, but it's something you can consider in evaluating the credibility of his testimony. He went on one trip with Kathy a few years ago that Susan paid for. He talked to Collin on the phone a total of 3 times, unless you believe that there was a second mysterious phone that Mr. Wolantis claimed that he talked to Collin all the time on for either every week or every other week. There's no evidence of that. Susan told you about a phone that she got for Collin when Kathy had kicked him out one of the several times that she bought for him to use because he'd been kicked out without his phone. It was active for a couple of weeks. It's another thing you can consider in deciding whether you think Robert Wolantis was reliable. You also have to consider whether Robert Wolantis was trying to make himself seem more intimately connected with his daughter's life and his grandson's life, and now with Kathy's death. Remember, he was the one who called Polk County Sheriff's Office. He was not the go-to family member that the detectives wanted to speak to get information. They didn't seek him out. He reached out to them. And he reached out to them only weeks after Kathy died. Not right away, not, oh my goodness, my daughter died. I have this important information that may help in the investigation. No, it wasn't until after he watched Grady Judd's press conference that was extremely detailed in describing the wounds that Kathy suffered and how she died that Mr. Wolantis called the sheriff's office. You can consider that in determining whether you think his testimony is reliable. You can also consider the language he used in describing what Collin said to him, allegedly, about wanting to slit his mother's throat and watch the blood and life seep from her. You've heard Collin's words several times on the 911 call, on the Ring videos. Does that sound like something Collin would say, or a way he would describe anything that he says? Or does that sound like Mr. Wolantis putting words in Collin's mouth?
Well, that's an interesting point of view.
All that to say, even if you believe Mr. Wolantis, which I urge you not to believe what he said, he claims Collin told him, but even if you do, that does not prove beyond a reasonable doubt.
It does sound like something you would say.
And you have to remember that too. That's what the state has to prove to you. So dealing with that one witness, let's move on to the charges against Collin. The kidnapping. The state has to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Collin, by force, threat, or secrecy, confined, abducted, or imprisoned or isolated Kathy against her will. And at the time he supposedly did any of those things, at that time he had the intent to commit great bodily harm or terrorize her. Okay? So what did the state present to try to convince you that there was a kidnapping? They presented the witnesses, the neighbors, Sally Bell and Nancy K. Jones. Both of them are neighbors of Susan's. You've seen the photos of where they lived. And you heard them say that Kathy was the one being aggressive right when she arrived. She whipped the car out of the driveway to pull it up against the curb or the grass. She slammed her car door. She slung her backpack over her back and she marched up to the door and went inside. Went inside that house of her own accord. When she comes back out of the house, she's throwing things into Collin's car. And you can see in the photo of the interior of his car, there's clothes thrown in the back and there's his computer and his phone on the front seat. And she's yelling and gesturing and stomping around. And then she goes back up to where Collin is standing in the doorway. Because remember, neither of those witnesses told you he was ever anywhere other than in the doorway. Not in the mulch where an AirPod was found, but in the doorway around the corner. So Kathy comes up to him. She's making a scene, obviously a scene that's loud enough, noticeable enough that the neighbors are looking to see what's going on. She's already drawn their notice. And as she's on the carport floor and Colin's standing in the doorway and she's still gesturing, he puts his hand, and the witnesses differ, on her neck area, on her shoulder, by her ponytail. And they said pulled her inside, not dragged, not grabbed her by the ponytail, more like, and this is something you can decide, more like an ushering, like, oh crap, you're causing a scene, like Kathy can, seeing it in the state's own evidence. Let's bring this inside so that we don't get the wrath of the neighbors up or cause attention to be drawn even more to our argument. That's a more reasonable interpretation of those facts.
Did you see that
It's
footage?
reasonable to interpret that Collin was embarrassed by his mom and didn't want to air their dirty laundry in the carport.
He politely dragged her
Now,
by her hair. How do
she did say,
you sort that
let
out?
go, you're hurting me. Okay, that's a fact. That she said that is not in dispute. But you can't just accept a statement by anyone, but let alone by Kathy at face value. Okay, so she claims, you're hurting me, let go. Does she pull away from him? Nope, witnesses never said anything about that. Did she try and stay at the bottom of the steps where she was gesturing at him? No, the witnesses didn't say that. They said that her feet actually moved up the steps. That indicates a willingness to go inside. That's a reasonable interpretation of what those witnesses told you. Did she say, I don't want to go back inside? No. Did she grab onto Collin in some way to get him to let go of her? No. Did it even look like she was actually being hurt? Don't you think, isn't it reasonable that if Sally Bell or Nancy K. Jones thought that Kathy was actually being harmed in any way whatsoever, that they wouldn't have either called 911? Kay Jones would have called Susan because remember, she was house sitting. She was aware that Collin was allowed to be there, that he had arrived the day before, his car hadn't moved. So she's sort of keeping an eye on the house. If either of them thought that Kathy was actually being harmed or being forced to do something against her will, don't you think, as the good neighbors that they were, they would have alerted someone? They didn't, because Kathy's saying she was being hurt and let me go, and they don't know her. But I think you can interpret that statement from Kathy, knowing what you know about Kathy, as being just one of the many things that she claimed happened that didn't actually happen. For instance, when she said on one of her multiple phone calls to Susan or in a text to Collin, there are a lot, so I'm sorry if I don't remember exactly where it came from. She said, I'm scared, Collin, you battered me or you hit me or you beat me before you left on Sunday. Remember the ring videos in every room in the house except the bathroom. And for the most part, she and Collin are on ring video. The state has given you some ring video. The defense has given you some additional ring video to sort of fill it out a little bit better. On none of that ring video is Collin ever touching her. So isn't it reasonable that even though she claimed Collin hit her, beat her, struck her before he left the house on September 7th, and there's no proof of that, that her saying hurt me, let go, was just her making something else up? There's another reasonable interpretation of Kathy saying, you're hurting me, let go. Remember, she was furious with Susan, with her mom, like furious. You heard her yell several times on the ring video at Susan. She was pissed off that Susan had let Collin come to her house, which, as you may recall, I asked several witnesses about this. And the reason I asked them about this is because I wanted it to be clear that it was permissible.
The neighbours were probably used to it carrying on, so they just ignored it.
Probation officer, who he emailed. It was permissible to the courts. You saw the pink paper that Kathy tried to make a big deal out of that said Collin may go to visit his grandmother out of county, just notify the probation officer. It was permissible under the 751 plan, the concurrent custody. There was nothing anywhere or in anyone's mind, except perhaps Kathy's, that said that Collin was not allowed to be at Susan's. Nevertheless, Kathy's pissed at her mom because Collin is at her house and hasn't come home as quickly as she demanded. Remember, she'd also made some threats to Susan in her text, saying, your HOA hates you, and Freddie, Susan's dog, doesn't have a dog tag, and that's a violation. A violation of what? I don't know. But Kathy's mad enough at Susan at this point that who knows, maybe she was trying to get Susan in trouble with her homeowners association by causing a bigger scene than it actually was. I'm not saying that's for sure what happened. I'm giving you reasonable interpretations of Kathy's behavior. But the bottom line is that there's no evidence that Kathy did anything against her will that day. And certainly no evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that she went back into the house that she'd already been in on her own, despite Collin touching her neck, her hair, her ponytail. She was not being dragged. She was not being forced. Plus, once she's in the house, the state has one theory of what may have happened. I'm going to propose some other, I would argue, more reasonable ones. When she's inside the house, she has access to her phone, right? She has access to car keys.
Yeah, if my kids don't answer the
Doors
phone,
are
they know
unlocked.
how
I've heard
cranky
Susan
that
say
gets
the doors
me.
are kept
Why do they
unlocked,
have a
and then you
phone?
Collin say on the 911 call when law enforcement first arrived and they're knocking on the door saying sheriff's office, he says, come in, the door's unlocked. There's no evidence that Kathy was kept in that house against her will. None. In fact, to the contrary, Collin would have been probably really happy if Kathy had left. No one wanted her to have come there. And knowing what you know about Kathy, don't you think it's reasonable that if she had been forced to go back inside against her will, that she wouldn't have fought tooth and nail to avoid doing what she didn't want to do? Remember, this is somebody that the state's own witness, Detective Zanoniani, said it's either her way or the highway. So, knowing what you know about Kathy, if she was being forced to do something against her will, it's reasonable she would have fought it, right? The state himself said, it doesn't look like there was a long drawn out fight throughout the house. If Kathy didn't want to be back in that house, how did her flip-flops make it all the way to the kitchen? If Kathy didn't want to be back in that house, she would have been flailing like she had been doing just talking to Collin before. And if she had been forced to go back into that house and then forced to go to the kitchen and forced not to leave, the house wouldn't have been in as pristine a condition as you saw. The plant would have been knocked over. Something would have been amiss. Didn't have any evidence from the medical examiner either to say she had any scalp wounds or anything indicating that she had been pulled by the hair. Not to mention the fact that, is it reasonable to you that Collin, despite what the prosecutor says, even though there's no evidence of how tall he is, how much he weighs, you've seen him in court.
Sorry.
You've seen a picture of him shirtless.
Whew.
If you believe
If you
that
could hear my
Collin
stomach,
could have made
Lord.
his mother do anything physically, I don't know what else to tell you. I'm not going to be able to convince you of anything. And if you think that Collin was dragging her by the hair, as the state seems to want you to believe, throughout that house, how come her flip-flops didn't come off right at the front door? Collin didn't make Kathy do anything. Oh, but the AirPods, the one in the mulch, that proves that Collin made Kathy do something against her will. BS. No witness ever saw Collin in the mulch. They never saw him anywhere other than the doorway. But they saw Kathy march her way up from her car to the doorway. Isn't it reasonable that as she's pissed off at Collin, comes in hot and angry, that it fell out while she was just being herself? Same with the ones in the house. Once again, if Collin was ever forcing her to do anything physically against her will, and that AirPod came out because of something he did, you think she would have just been like, okay, I'm going to let you keep dragging me, instead of flailing about and, like I said, knocking something amiss in the house? No, that's not reasonable, because none of that ever happened. There was no kidnapping, period. The felony murder count, which is also first-degree murder. If you were to find Collin guilty of that, that would mean you have to find beyond a reasonable doubt that he kidnapped Kathy and that during that kidnapping, he caused her death. So I've already told you all the reasons why I think the state has utterly failed to prove a kidnapping. But even if you did find that, because I don't want to presume that you're going to find anything. I'm here to make suggestions, not to tell you how to do your job, like the prosecutor was trying to do. That hour and 15 minutes between when the neighbor saw Collin usher his mother inside as she's making a scene and when he called 911 distraught, you would have to believe that Collin forced Kathy to stay in that house that entire hour and 15 minutes and was inflicting some bodily harm or terrorizing her that whole time. That's not reasonable. There was no kidnapping, and this was no felony murder. This was self-defense. So the state wants you to believe that this was a premeditated murder. In order to do that, once again, they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Collin intended to kill her and beyond a reasonable doubt that he was not acting in self-defense. That's what you would have to find. I heard a lot of outrage from the prosecutor in his closing statement. And this is an awful situation. But there was no outrage about how Kathy had behaved, how Kathy had treated her son, how she had treated other people. And I'm not saying you have to have outrage at that. You've heard a lot of unfavorable things about Kathy. And I am not going to go through every single one because you took notes, you heard and saw, you heard from the state's own witnesses, those things. Susan confirmed them. But remember, the incidents that you heard about Kathy being violent in the past or making things up in the past were all corroborated, either by police reports, DCF reports that Detective Zanoniani had reviewed, or by witnesses, by Susan. I was not presenting those to you to just bash Kathy, to make her look like a horrible person. To the contrary, I was doing my job because the law says, and the judge will tell you, that you have to consider prior acts of violence, prior acts of aggression, a reputation for dangerous and violent behavior in deciding whether Collin was reasonable in defending himself against his mom on September 8th. I'm not going to read the instruction in detail because, like I said, the judge will do that for you. But the law requires you to consider what Collin knew about his mom to decide whether you think he acted reasonably in defending himself. You have to decide the reasonableness of Collin's actions in light of all of those things. In light of the fact that she had pulled a gun on him before, in light of the fact that she had threatened to kill other people before, in light of the fact that she had attacked other people before with weapons. Some of these things in front of Collin. So it's not even just hearing about it, it's witnessing it. He knew all those things about her. He knew what she was capable of when she was angry. He knew all of this, and it was in his mind when she came to him on September 8th. Collin also knew that Kathy would sometimes make things up to hurt other people, such as he knew that she claimed someone strangled her. She even claimed that she had video of it, but when the police reviewed it, it showed you she was strangling herself. He knew that she had called DCF on her own brother, got them involved in an investigation that was baseless. He knew that his mom claimed to do everybody else's schoolwork, including her own mother's dissertation for her PhD. He knew this about his mother. And luckily, those threats and made-up stories that Kathy had told in the past didn't ever result in any serious consequences for those people. But Kathy had never suffered the consequences of making those stories up either. And what happens when you don't suffer consequences? You continue the behavior. And sometimes she was actually even believed when she made things up. One glaring example. The day that she pulled the gun on Collin, threatened to shoot him or herself, and then handed him the gun and said, "Just shoot me," Collin immediately tells his teacher or professor, who talks to the school resource officer, who gets the deputies involved. The deputies go to Kathy at her house. And Kathy says, "No, I never pulled a gun. What? He's just being a brat. He was failing classes, so I disciplined him by taking away his phone and his AirPods." And they believed her. Okay. Now, at the time, maybe that wasn't so astonishing. But remember what Susan told you. Susan told you that Kathy admitted to her that she had actually pulled a gun on Collin. So Kathy lied to the police. She also lied about him failing his classes. That was never true. And convinced them that Collin was just being a brat. Despite the fact that Collin had given a detailed account of what his mother did to him with her gun, they didn't believe him. They believed that he was just being a brat. Don't get me wrong, Collin could be a brat. I am not trying to make him look like an angel and Kathy look like the devil. You heard him on the Ring video and how he talked to his mom. Disrespectful, absolutely. But that doesn't make him a murderer. Also, look at his role model. That sounds awful, but we all talked about in jury selection that kids kind of do what they know. Their parents are their role models. Their parents teach them by not only talking to them, but by their own behavior. They cussed back and forth at each other. Is it an ideal parental-child relationship? No, but that's how they existed. You heard Kathy cussing at a number of people, including her mom, and cussing and claiming Collin had put a lid on her cup too tight and that it caused her to cut her hand.
Yeah, it's the future you got to worry about there, Elizabeth and Teresia. If he's done this now,
Example of her making things up.
gets married in the future.
So even though
100% right,
Collin could
girls.
be a brat and disrespectful to his mom, but what 17-year-old isn't at times, you cannot ignore the fact that Kathy told her mom, "Yeah, I lied to the police. I actually did pull a gun." You cannot ignore that fact. And it was in response to his mother pulling a gun on him that Collin started making these statements that the state has conveniently termed threats, but without wanting you to consider all of the words in those statements. And that was the same incident where Kathy lied to the police about not pulling a gun on Collin. Remember, he ends up Baker acted because he begins the litany of times that he said, "I don't feel safe with my mom. I'm afraid what she'll do to me. I'm afraid if she pulls a gun on me again, I'll have to defend myself. If she does those things that we now know she did, I will defend myself." You even saw him on body-worn camera footage telling the officers that if she does this to me again, if she punches me, if she attacks me, I will defend myself. I'm afraid I don't feel safe at home. But no one would listen. Over and over and over, he tells people in authority this. They believe Kathy, they don't believe him. I want to propose a possible reason why they didn't listen to him. Once they found out that he had been arrested for a shooting death in Oklahoma, despite the fact that he was never charged with that, everybody decided, we can't believe him. We have to believe her. Look at his past. And that is an awful shame.
Don't you have a statute of limitations or something, Uda Hef? How long would that be?
How Kathy behaved.
No, they can charge him.
Words to her mother that she pulled a gun on
They charged this. They charged bloody
people in authority ignored Kathy's well-documented
What's her name? The chick that just got no mercy. They charged her 5 years. Like he exhumed his body 5 years down the track. This actually only happened in
Yeah.
September last year. It's the quickest murder trial ever.
Oh, really?
history
Mm.
of violence
But do you
towards others.
think he should really go to jail, or do you think he should go to a rehabilitation nut house something?
Yeah.
Oh, not
He
for murder.
definitely-
Is there everything? Is there one for everything else to have?
Well-documented history of aggression and volatility and impulsivity. They ignored the fact that she owned a gun. They ignored the things she had done to her ex-husband. They ignored that she had stabbed him and burned him and pinned him to the house. This is all in police reports and DCF reports. They just ignored it. And these are just the documented episodes that we know about of Kathy being violent towards others. You saw how she acted on her own Ring video, right? And this is her knowing she's being recorded. So if that's how she behaves when she knows she's being recorded, think about what she might do when she's not being recorded.
Any instructions?
We also know she
No.
beat Collin with the belt in front of her own mother. And when Susan tried to intervene, she tried to claim that law enforcement had sanctioned that behavior. She claimed that Corporal Rentas told her it was okay. Well, you heard from Detective Zanoniani that law enforcement would never sanction such a thing. The day before Kathy died, you've seen the Ring video. You saw that she and Collin had an argument about putting up the bookshelf. You saw that he was disrespectful to her.
Heard that.
But you also saw that her reaction to that was to kick him out, which she lied about later too. She claims on the phone with her mom on the Ring video, I never kicked him out. I never kicked him out. I never kicked him out. Watch the Ring video again. Listen to her words. Get out and don't come back, even if you're bawling your eyes out. Beyond that, give me your house keys. She took his keys to get back into the house that he lived in. You can't see it in the States Ring video that they played, but I admitted a defense exhibit that we only played a short clip from, but it's longer. You can watch it if you don't trust me or don't believe me. But in that clip that you didn't see, but is in evidence, it shows the view from the living room. And it shows her actually taking the keys from Collin and putting them on the hook inside the door. And then her closing the door and locking it behind him. And you may also remember that the key ring that was on the kitchen at Susan's house was just a car key with no house keys on it. Yeah, those were to
Four
Collin's car.
minutes.
No house keys. So she kicks him out over him not helping with the bookshelf. Should he have helped her? Probably. But was it so unreasonable to think that if you put up a bookshelf that's not anchored to studs, that it might be a problem? So all of this is going to Collin's state of mind the day before Kathy comes to him at Susan's house. It's something you must consider when you're deciding whether the state has proved with facts and evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that Collin wasn't reasonably defending himself against his mother on September 8th. And would a reasonable person defend themselves like Collin did? Sort of on a separate note, the state has argued that the text that Kathy sent to Collin, threatening all sorts of things, because you know she threatened all sorts of things that were not true, right? I won't go through all of them. But that this text where she says she's going to send all these Ring videos of him supposedly confessing to planning a murder in Oklahoma, that provides a motive for Collin to want to kill his mom. Okay, first of all, you have to believe that the threat was true. given what you know about Kathy, given the fact that no one's seen any ring videos of any such nature, and given the fact that Collin has never been charged with anything in Oklahoma, and given the fact that her deadline of 3 p.m. when she was going to supposedly send these to all these
It's arriving
people
now.
had long passed before she got to Collin, isn't it reasonable to think this is just another thing that she made up? Because if those things existed, they'd be out there. They would have been in front of you. And don't you think Collin knew that that was an empty threat? Knew that no such recordings existed? So this big motive that the state wants you to believe in, also BS. Just another one of her delusional lies. Something else she made up, like she made up things all the time, and that the state's own evidence proves to you. Then you have to think, even if you believe that the threat was true or real, beyond a reasonable doubt, you have to believe that Collin somehow made her come to him so that he could kill her. And that's just absurd. Kathy made the choice to go to where he was. And let's face it, Collin had been trying to escape his mother for quite some time, for at least a year that we know of, since September of 2023, when he got put in the Baker Act facility for something his mom did and lied about, when he said, "I don't feel safe." And that's what he was trying to do on September 8th when she kicked him out. I mean, on September 7th when she kicked him out. He was trying to escape her. Think about this. All the times that you've heard about Collin saying, "I don't feel safe. If my mom attacks me, I'll defend myself. If she comes at me, if she pulls a gun on me, if she punches me, I'll defend myself." Remember, Collin told people that he would rather be in the Baker Act facility than at home with his mother. He told people in authority he would rather be in jail than at home with his mother. He told people in authority he would rather be in foster care than at home with his mother. And the state wants you to believe that Collin's just a brat who didn't like the discipline he got, so he murdered his mom. That's also absurd. Because as the state has pointed out many times, Collin had what they think is a great life with mom, right? So he gets to go on trips, absolutely got to go on trips. He lives in a clean, nice, organized home with plenty of food.
That she demanded her mother
He has
pay
a
for.
phone, he has an Xbox, he has a computer, he gets to go to college. Don't you think Collin, as smart as he was to be able to graduate early, would know that if he actually were to be placed in the Baker Act facility instead of going home with his mom where he didn't feel safe, or remain in jail instead of going home with his mom with whom he didn't feel safe, or went into foster care instead of going home with his mom with whom he didn't feel safe, he would get none of those wonderful things. None of them. He would not have a phone. He would not have an Xbox. He would not go on trips all over the country or the world. And yet he still said, "Please, re-Baker Act me. Please, don't send me home from jail with my mom. Please, I'd rather go to foster care." These are the things you know, and that the state has proved. Collin was trying to escape his mom because he was scared. He was scared of what she would do to him, and if she attacked him, what he would do in response. So, knowing all that, let's talk about September 8th. Kathy went to where Collin was. Isn't it reasonable to believe, because let's be clear, the state has offered no proof, zero proof of what actually happened in Susan's house on September 8th? None. Zero proof does not equal proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But isn't it reasonable to believe that Kathy, in her anger, her desperation to make Collin come home, that she picked up a knife and threatened him with it, which is in total conformance with how she's acted in the past? Absolutely, it's reasonable. The state wants you to think, despite any proof, that Collin dragged his mother to the kitchen, somehow kept her there against her will, either by beating her or holding her by the ponytail, and then somehow managed to get a knife out of the butcher block while still holding on to Kathy, such that she couldn't get away to start this fight over the knife. That's absurd. And it certainly hasn't been proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Isn't it more reasonable, given everything you know, that Kathy picked up the knife, threatened Collin with it, and he defended himself, as he's been saying he would do for a year? Isn't it also reasonable that Kathy knew what the outcome was going to be when she picked up a knife and threatened Collin with it? You've heard of suicide by cop? Isn't it reasonable to think that Kathy committed suicide by son? She had never been able to successfully commit suicide before, despite her many attempts. Isn't it reasonable that she pulled a knife on Collin, knowing that if she attacked him, that he would defend himself, and that the end result might be that she died? I'm not saying that that's what was in her mind, because we don't know what was in her mind. I'm saying that it's a reasonable possibility given everything you know about her. It's also a reasonable possibility.
That's a bit of a
reasonable
leap, isn't it?
that she attacked Collin with the knife.
It's a bit of a leap
has
to jump
wounds.
that she did death by son, like death by
Yeah.
cop kind of thing,
Yeah,
It's a bit of a leap, that is.
I agree.
Dr. Garavan talked to you a little bit about
I
mutual
was actually
contact
reading
and how a struggle.
Teresia's comment, and that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But he tried to do that by going to the grandma's, and she demanded he came back. That's the issue. There was no swaying her. She was adamant. That's it. Rain, hail, or shine, no matter what I have to do, that's it. You're coming home.
Over a weapon can result in both people with wounds, which is what you see here. Exactly what you see here. You also, most of you in jury selection mentioned that self-defense is a right that each of us has. And those of you who own guns said that they keep them
I'll share mine with
nearby,
you, Teresia.
often for protection. And I said, protection from what? You said, if someone comes into my house and attacks me, I can protect myself and my family. So isn't it reasonable that that's what Collin did here? When Kathy came into the house where he was
Yes, I agree. That is
living,
bullshit.
for all intents and purposes at that point,
That's
and
pushing
that
it.
she attacked him with a knife, that he defended himself, as was his right. The state
Yeah, I don't
has
think she expected
proved
him to kill her.
at no level, let alone beyond a reasonable doubt, that Collin picked up the knife and attacked Kathy with it. That means you have to try and figure out, if there's no evidence of exactly what happened, you have to think about what was reasonable. And it makes way more sense, given what you know, that Kathy attacked Collin and he defended himself. They tried to get you to believe that Collin was rage-filled and hate-filled, and all of these malicious thoughts were geared towards his mom. If you believe that beyond a reasonable doubt, don't you think there'd be more than just one wound on Kathy? Sorry, she had two wounds. She had the neck wound and she had the hand wound. Those could have happened at the same time. You don't know whose hands were on what part of the knife during this struggle. If Collin was so rage-filled and had such hatred for his mom, don't you expect that there would be 5, 10, 20 stab wounds? That's something you can consider too. So the state played
Do you think
parts
there
of the
would be
911
more
call again,
stab wounds?
and they want you to believe that that proves beyond a reasonable doubt that
If it was
Collin
rage-filled,
murdered
yeah,
his
for
mother and
sure.
wasn't just defending himself.
For sure.
You can believe or disbelieve what Collin said. If you don't believe what Collin said, that still doesn't mean that the state has proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he murdered his mother. Remember that. Also consider that Collin said there was a long fight and she fell on the knife. Knowing his history, don't you think he, of not being believed by people in authority repeatedly, that yeah, he may have not told the entire truth
Did anyone
because he was scared.
testify where?
That doesn't make him a murderer.
Hang on. Has anyone testified where they found blood on his clothes? Like what part of his clothing was the blood located in? Can anyone remember?
Nope.
Hmm.
I can go look it up though.
I think because it was premeditated, there's only one wound.
Well, she just said there's two.
No, but what we're saying is that if it's a rage-filled killing, it's normally more than one.
That's
the
right.
point.
Yeah.
But if he's like got like blood around his, like the collar of his shirt and stuff, it depends where that is, where the blood has fallen onto him as to where he was when it happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah. And, you know, what, you want one bullet or do you want to empty the clip?
Empty the clip every time.
Yeah. You're going to have the same job. If you're good.
Especially because when he went to the people who are supposed to protect him, law enforcement, doctors, DCF, and said, my mom attacked me with a gun. My mom pulled a gun on me. I don't feel
Yep.
safe. I'm afraid.
Yep.
I'll defend myself.
That's
Don't you
good
think
parenting,
he,
isn't it?
And then believing her when she says absolutely never happened. He's just being a brat. Don't you think he might be a little scared when he's
Just put a
talking
gun
to
to his
a
head.
911 operator? Not to mention the possible shock because of what he had been through in a struggle over a knife with his own mom. And let's not forget the one wound to Kathy's neck. State wants you to believe that it was some vicious, forceful, rage-filled wound. But remember what Dr. Garavan said? He said that it actually doesn't take much force to go through the soft tissue in the neck.
There's a way you can write it. Use letters and numbers.
Biggest point of resistance is the skin itself.
Depends how
And
sharp an
that
eyeball
Get
is
resistance
too.
creative.
is even less
Mm.
if the
Come
knife
on.
has a pointy triangular tip, which is what we have here.
Write it in pig
So-
Latin.
Knowing that it wouldn't take much force to inflict that wound, knowing that
You remember talking
Kathy
that?
has been violent in the past, knowing that she has threatened people in the past,
Do you have a
knowing that
TikTok
she
pig Latin
has
10?
attacked other people, isn't it reasonable
What was
that
that?
she pulled the knife on Collin? He
Do I
pulled the
remember
knife on-
what?
There was a long fight over the
Talking
knife.
pig
The
Latin.
messiness of that confined space between
Oh,
the
God,
island,
years
the
ago.
cabinet, and the stove.
Imagine trying to say
There was
Udaheff
a
in pig
struggle
Latin.
over a knife. And don't you think it's reasonable that
Oh, you
during
get
the
out of
struggle
here.
over a knife in the confined area, and who knows what positions anybody was in, state sure can't prove any, that gravity may have played a part in that little bit of force
yeah.
that was necessary to cause that wound?
I get it. Just put them
As
together
I
like
said,
this.
these are interpretations based on what you do know. But don't forget,
Oh,
I don't have to prove exactly what
what happened
happened.
there?
It's the state's responsibility to prove
Yeah,
to you beyond a
that's the
reasonable
one.
doubt
See?
that
Chris-
Collin did not
Elizabeth
act
can
in
say it.
self-defense. So let's
That's the one. Look,
talk
see?
about what the state may have proved beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's classic. How come Elizabeth
One, by
Yeah.
way of stipulation from
can
us,
say
that
it?
there was no foreign
I
DNA
cued it
or
up. I like that
proteins
one.
in fingernails.
Pool cue.
Yeah, but she
No,
put an S in it.
just kidding.
She put
Yeah.
an
Ah,
S in it,
okay.
so it changed it. Yeah. So if you'd have
Right.
used a hashtag instead of the X, then it would have come through.
Something you have to establish. What weight to give it is up to you. But so what does that mean? That means she never scratched Collin with her fingernails. That's it.
YouTube daddy
least
must not
not
like you, Hef.
on the fingernails that they took the swabs from. So why is that important? Why should you?
Truth be
Ah, so it
told,
was his
Elizabeth,
fault our stream got cancelled.
You would expect she would have scratched him with her fingernails if she was
I think,
actually being dragged
Elizabeth
into
might
the
have-
Oh,
house
get
or
out of here.
across the living room, into the kitchen,
What?
and being held against her will.
I missed it.
Teresia just said it.
No DNA.
Teresia
What?
just
No
said it.
scratches.
Oh, yeah.
The word.
Means no
Yeah.
struggle with just her fingernails. So that piece of evidence does not establish anything beyond a reasonable doubt as far as whether Collin is guilty. You know why else she wouldn't have to scratch him at all? Is if she had control of the knife. Because she doesn't need to scratch him and defend herself with her fingernails because she had the knife first. That actually supports that she pulled the knife on Collin first.
That is a possibility.
They've also proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Kathy had bruises all over her body. Okay. Keep in mind that the lighting in the morgue, when pictures are being taken for evidentiary purposes, are a lot different than pictures you take with your cell phone. There has been zero proof of how Kathy got those bruises. Dr. Garavan can't date them. He said they could have come from innocuous activities like doing chores around the house, like you saw Kathy doing on the night of the 7th. Certainly no evidence to show that Collin somehow inflicted those. So even though they've proved that there are bruises, they have not proved how those bruises occurred. So essentially meaningless. Or another possibility, reasonable interpretation, is that she got bruises while they were struggling over the knife. The state has also proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Collin had blood on him. So what? He had wounds. He performed life-saving CPR on his mother at the instruction of the 911 operator. He held towels in his own shirt to her to try and stop the bleeding. You saw the bloody towels. It also supports that there was a struggle over the knife. It does not support that Collin murdered his mother. The blood on his eyeglasses frame, I hope that was clear when I was asking the crime scene tech that if somebody's holding towels and doing CPR and in this confined space, that they might adjust their glasses and get blood on it that way. But what about the blood on the backpack? Does that prove Collin's a murderer? Absolutely not. Remember I asked the question about the...
Yeah, that there is another contentious issue I've got. All right. So the next thing she does after she's sold his car, cut his phone off, and threatened all this shit to him, she then comes at him and says, right, I'm going to share the CCTV footage of you admitting that you killed your father to him, right? Now, how long has she fucking known about that? How long has she held on to that information? And she's weaponizing it now. That to me makes her an accessory. If she's known that before that phone call, that is all part of the manipulation and shit that she's holding over his head to coercively control him.
Collin's phone.
Well, that's reason enough for her to...
Kathy's phone could have been in her backpack.
She had to have known about it before then. She couldn't just have gone, oh, I just checked the CCTV feed footage from a year ago and you're admitting to killing your father.
Yeah.
Why bring it up 12 months
Yeah,
later?
well.
You know? Hello?
Exactly.
You can't have it both ways.
And it was Kathy's phone that was used to call 911. So blood being on the backpack doesn't prove Collin's a murderer either. It may prove that Collin, after he tried to stem the bleeding before he called 911,
Yeah,
had to go
she
look
weaponized
for
it, Tricia. She used it against him.
to call
It was
911.
part of her control.
Yeah,
Or that in
it's
the
right.
struggle over the knife, before he called 911 in that
When it
confined
happens,
space, that's
and you
how he
don't have the
got-
right to use it as a
No.
weapon. You know,
The
like,
other thing
Makes her an
if you're going to
accessory.
dob him in, do it at the time.
about is that
Yeah.
Collin has
Yep.
said over and over and over and over and over and over, I don't feel safe with my mom. I'm afraid she'll attack me. I'm afraid she'll hurt me and I'll have to defend myself.
Yeah.
They've tried to skew the statements to make it sound like he just walks around going, I'm going to kill my mother, not if she does something to me first. So I want you to think about this. If Collin really wanted to kill his mother,
Why did he
and that
run
he
to his
wasn't acting in
grandma's?
self-defense, why on earth would he have telegraphed this to every person in authority at any chance he got?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
He did.
He told people in authority.
I need help. I need help. Look, he was trying to get help.
right.
And they wouldn't keep him longer than 72 hours. Despite him saying, I'm scared that this is going to happen, they sent him home to her.
That if she attacked him, he would defend himself because he was scared. He was scared of what she would do, much like Susan said she was scared of what Kathy would do.
Who
And
opts
also
for a Baker
consider that if
Act?
he, for months, if not
Seriously.
longer, wanted to just kill his mom, and this is a little sick, but there were a number of ways he could have done it that would not have implicated himself, especially after he has told people in authority, if she attacks me,
I could give him a list.
One of the many cruises they went on. Could have
Yeah, it's almost like he admitted it
could have slipped
to everybody,
some of
and
her
then
medication,
why would you do that?
legal
Yeah,
or otherwise, into
exactly.
Doesn't
her
make
veins.
sense.
Could have shot her. If he was as forcefully strong over Kathy as the state wants you to believe he was,
I don't know. Do you really think he
should
thought
go
about
back
it that
in the
long?
home where there were no ring cameras and slit her wrists in the bathtub. And in any of those scenarios, he wouldn't have had.
I don't know how much that has been embellished, Tricia. Like, why would the grandmother be threatened and then stand up and defend him? And why would she shelter him? Why would she get an attorney to represent him against her daughter? That's the testimony of the father, her father, saying that. And the comment was, I've had it with these women, or something like, all these bitches. And I think that's been taken and run with, because she certainly wasn't scared of him, the grandmother. So I've taken that one with a grain of salt myself.
Had to rely on her coming to him. Her driving.
I'm sure he did, yeah.
hours
Every
to get to
day.
him.
Every day she was harassing him. I would have too. I heard her for 10 minutes.
What
and I
about
stabbed
him?
her.
He didn't kill her.
What about if she really did fall on the
There was
knife?
none of the body worn camera footage.
That's what I was
don't know.
asking. Whereabouts was the blood? Like, they could have been fighting for it and had it in her hand. And yeah, I don't know. It is
Well, they said it
possible,
was
but
on his shoes and his feet, on his
well, that would
shorts,
mean
his
he was.
shoes and his
That would
shorts.
that would mean he was standing then, so not laying. So she couldn't have fallen on it. I
But
need to
hang
go
on,
back and have a listen.
we do, because I'm thinking here, well, if he stabbed her, he wouldn't only have it on his shoes and his shorts, mate. He'd have it down his shirt as well.
Well, you would think he's severed the muscle and the artery and the trachea, so it would be arterial spray. He would have it everywhere, especially if he was that close to her.
Well, that's
Like they're
right.
saying, if he
But if
did
he
it,
wasn't that close to her, then where would he have it? I was a bit further away. She fell on the knife. The blood went everywhere. Where would he have it? He'd have it on his shoes and shorts.
I suppose if he's kneeling down beside her while she's bleeding out,
Yeah.
because you think
Oh, he
about
didn't
it,
have
you're
a shirt
standing,
on. Okay.
didn't he? But did he have it all over his chest, all over his
Well,
arms? Like, I
yeah.
need to go back and watch it.
Because I'm
Listen to
just
it.
thinking, if he only had it on his shorts and his shoes and pretend he did have a shirt on, and she fell down onto the knife, well, then that makes sense that you'd only have it up that high. You know what I mean? Because she's there squirting on the ground, bleeding, and his feet are on the ground. You know what I mean? I don't know.
To kill her, but if she attacks me, I will defend myself. The state has proved nothing of significance beyond a reasonable doubt to you, except that Collin and his mom had a very disturbed
He did
relationship.
use a towel. They produced
And
the
also
towels.
perhaps that they never should have been living together. You heard about other family members who were periodically estranged from Kathy. These are all adults with their own lives.
Just ask Elizabeth about
Collin,
the last 3 days of her 9-day bender.
who also clearly wanted to separate himself from his mom.
You weren't here, Tan, were you?
No.
We're having a talk about illicit substances. Elizabeth said, I went on a 9-day bender once and we spent the last 3 days just shagging, but we had to turn the mattress over.
Oh my gosh. When he said squirting on the ground,
Yeah.
I thought he was talking about playing soggy sayo or something.
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
He's still a kid. Without the agency or the autonomy
She a daddy bish.
to really sever any connection with her. Right? He's telling people, I don't feel safe. I don't want to go back with my mom. And yet they kept making him do that. It's kind of like someone saying, say, a zoo worker or a circus worker that's responsible for taking care of a lion in a cage. Don't make me go back in that cage with that lion. It's bared its fangs at me. It's reared up at me. But luckily, every time I was able to get out before it attacked me and caused me harm. And the zookeepers and the circus people kept saying, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Go back in the cage. Go back in the cage. And closing the door behind him. Doesn't mean that the lion is in attack mode all the time. The lion could be majestic and charming to audiences.
What the
Cute,
fruit
even
is this
sometimes.
woman going on about?
Could seem calm, but it was, after all, a violent being.
I'm sure her yeast infection's itching, mate. Like this chick.
Poor zoo or circus worker was forced to go back
Well,
into that cage time and time again.
the prosecutor did embellish.
And the lion finally managed to attack him, and he couldn't get
And he
out.
dragged her into the house. Like,
Claim
I want to
he
see him
was
drag a lion into the
over and
house.
over and over for defending himself. Each one of the authority figures that Collin begged to take him away from
Tiny
his
cute
mother
lady.
ignored him,
Who
failed to protect him.
the hell?
What the hell?
Take your rose-coloured glasses off, love.
They had the power to make statements that he might harm his mom not come true,
Oh, that's right. She did.
and they didn't.
With the bag.
So,
Oh,
been
that's
through a
just
lot.
ew.
I'm gonna give you one final thought.
That's even blur.
Again, that Collin is
That's just nasty.
okay? Unless and until the state can prove beyond a reasonable doubt with evidence and facts that he kidnapped and murdered his mother. So that's like saying you have to start with seeing the vase in black. That's the presumption of innocence. In order for the state to overcome that presumption of innocence, they have to provide you with facts such that you can only see the faces, such that you don't see the vase anymore. If you can see both the faces and the vase, that's reasonable doubt. The state has in no way come close to proving to you beyond a reasonable doubt that only the faces exist. They have failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Collin did anything other than defend himself against his mother, and that what he was afraid would happen actually happened. Your verdict has to be not guilty.
One more 10-minute recess. I think you need to finish making your lunch.
I don't know.
selections,
She
because we'll
didn't
hear from the
seem
state
as
in a while, and
charismatic,
I'll
you know what I
go
mean?
into the instructions.
As she needed to be.
10 minutes.
All right, please.
He was embellishing a lot, that prosecutor. Here we go for the rebuttal.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was.
He seems a bit cocky with his stance
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
attitude a bit, yeah.
And when he lost the arguments too, when they were arguing over whether privilege was to be attached to whether, client attorney privilege was to be attached to a minor, he almost had a tanty, like we just.
You're about
Of
6
course it
minutes
can
away
be.
from hearing the jury instructions. It's going to be a lot shorter than the first time around.
All right, I have to go for 1 second.
And we're going to finish up with the rest of the PowerPoint. Those two photos there, as you heard Dr. Garavan say, are consistent with defensive wounds. Open, gaping, fresh defensive wounds. Kathy doing what she could with her bare hand to try to prevent that knife from going through her neck. Remember, the defendant, his hands were pristine. No cuts, no bruises, no stab wounds, nothing, because Kathy never had that knife. So how did this happy, smiling young lady turn into those last photographs you saw?
A couple of quick yes or no questions I almost forgot before we go. And do you think he's capable of killing you?
Yes.
She was quite aware that he was capable of killing her.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for your time.
Now, how did the defendant act when his mom did something as simple as take away his Xbox and his phone to try to instill some discipline action?
You stood up and said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Yes, you did. I was there.
I was saying, no, I'm not a psychopath. I'm not this murderer.
Why does she think he's a psychopath and a murderer? Sometimes when you protest too much, you're scared of the reality.
I'll say it to you like this, if you want to know. Collin 1 is, I guess, he's who just wants to survive, help people, and do good things in the world. And Collin 2 is the one that protects Collin 1 in situations where he can't escape from, and Collin 2 is the one that killed someone. Because what's it going to come down to next time?
I don't think you're a pussy. I think that you are capable of killing your mother, but I don't think that you will.
No, why would I?
Collin, I will let you get to that. Do you think Collin will let you get to that? I can't hear you, sir. Why Collin, you're a strong individual. Why would you submit in a roundabout way to Collin? So when we talk about,
It's the strongest version of me.
Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant knows the strongest version of him is the one that kills and murders.
So how is the situation with you and mom right now? Things calm down?
No,
you guys
no,
everybody's
no,
get
no.
along? Where are we at?
I'm sorry, it's not good. She thinks that I get shot at her. I don't. She thinks that I'm like psychotic, like literally psychopath, sociopath, something like that. I don't know exactly where she's at. She thinks I'm going to kill her.
She's 100% on the money.
Okay, what about you doing something to her? Are you able to control yourself?
I'm in a constant state of fight or flight, and I don't know. If I think she's going to do something, even if she's not, I might act.
Oh, he acted all right. This is what the defendant said to his own grandpa, Robert Walankas, whose daughter was brutalized by the defendant. My grandson was very aggravated at his grandmother and his mother. He said, I am so tired of these two bitches. I'm disgusted. He said, my mom, I keep thinking over and over, I want to slit her throat. I want her to bleed out. I want to smell the blood. I want to feel the blood. I want to feel the life and the blood leaving her body. That's exactly what he did. And that's just not Robert Walankas saying that. When you look back at the text message that Kathy sent to the defendant before she came over, she said to her son, my dad is sending me his recordings of you telling him how you planned my murder back in February. So that just corroborates what you should already know, that Robert told his daughter what was coming her way. And what was coming her way was exactly what the defendant said he wanted to do with her. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what he wanted to do as he left his mom with that gaping hole just as he said he would. So the talk is done. Now it's time for action. When you go back in that jury room and deliberate, come back, dispense justice in the utmost way. Thank you.
This guy looks like he's leaning backwards all the time. Sorry, Elizabeth and Teresa, I don't know who Upchurch is, but I do know who Kid Rock is.
All right, members of the jury, thank you for your attention
What did I
during the
miss?
trial. Please pay attention to the instructions you're about to receive.
Not much,
Now,
just the dude that
you've been
leans
taking
back all the
notes. You're
time
welcome
and
to
looks
continue
weird.
doing so, but before you make that decision, be advised you will receive a
Don't
written
want to listen
version
to jury
of these
instructions, do we? Good.
Oh, I don't think so.
All right. I want to go back to.
Did we get to see the ring cam of when he killed the dad?
No, wasn't allowed in.
Oh. Could we see it any other way?
I think so. I want to get to the CCTV video that they. I thought it was in here. No, it's a bloody opening statements. I think it was day 3. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, my back. Yeah, day 3, which was last Thursday, I think. That's when it was. Was it before or after the grandfather testified? Here we go. I think this is it. I think.
He completely blocked me, and he's completely removed himself from his Apple ID so that he cannot be tracked.
So this is the mother calling the grandmother because he has gone there to seek refuge and she wants him back. Are you back again?
Yeah, I'm back. I dropped out. Don't know why.
Oh, and just before we do that, have a read of these again. Small. Hang on. I'll get it on a different one because I can't make it bigger. Oop. That's better. Okay. This is about battered child syndrome. Okay.
So does it really exist?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Abuse. It's like battered wife syndrome. Same thing. If they've been abused for a long time.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yet the same thing. So they have that that ongoing heightened sense of anxiety and their perception of threat and danger is high.
Okay.
Abused children are often abused by loved ones over a period of years. Because of this abuse, such children experience feelings of helplessness, fear, isolation, low self-esteem. Battered children are psychologically dependent on their abusers, socially isolated, and fear punishment if they reveal the abuse. Now, can you imagine that reversed gender role as well, of how much that would be affecting him because he's a male and he's not supposed to be feeling that way, especially being abused by a female and someone that's supposed to be nurturing him. It goes through a few of the different cases, because they need to feel that they're a threat of imminent danger. The manner
Well,
in
didn't he
which
have the
they-
danger that he'd kill her?
Well-
What happened with his father, though? Like,
we didn't get to hear any of that. I've got the indictment, which we can go through. I haven't read it, but I've
because,
got
like, was he hassling him as well the same way, and that's why he
Apparently-
offed him?
Don't know, but apparently there was a huge, nasty custody battle going on between the two of them. So I don't know. And look, the father could have been abusing her. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know what. Don't know. Okay, so Indiana in 1988, a young man was found guilty of the murder of his parents. In his case, the state Supreme Court said that the fact that he was a victim of an abusive ongoing relationship did not, standing alone, support the self-defense instruction. There must also be a showing of impending danger, which wasn't the case here. It had been a while since the last episode, but that doesn't matter. Like, a trigger can happen at any, like, it could be, as soon as you hear
100%.
your father put his
100%.
knife and fork down, you're in for it. You know what I mean? Like, it's perception.
Or you're the motorbike coming up the street,
Correct, Courts have since come to understand that part of the syndrome is that the battered child sees this peaceful time as his or her only chance to end the abuse. Expert testimony explained to the jury that such a child always perceives him or herself to be in great danger. For the battering to end, the batterer must die. The court's acceptance of battered woman's syndrome as relevant to the issue of self-defense in the murder of the abuser led the way to the similar acceptance of battered child syndrome. In the early 1900s, a young man was convicted in Washington for the second-degree murder of his stepfather, and he appealed. Court of Appeals later told the Supreme Court held that the jury needed to hear testimony on battered child syndrome in order to evaluate the reasonableness of the abused child's perception that he was in imminent danger of death or serious bodily harm at the time that he killed his stepfather. Most recently in Ohio, a young man appealed his conviction for the murder of his mother. He had been diagnosed with battered child syndrome, and the state Supreme Court found that this fact was relevant to his defence. So, yeah, and then you add it to the definition. It can be controlling or coercive behaviour, such as stopping someone from going out alone or controlling access to someone's phone, physical, online or digital, controlling someone's finances like withholding money, harassment and stalking, blah, 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 blah. Now, think of those when you listen to this recording of her calling her mother whilst trying to get him home. Why? When he's threatened to kill her. Like,
Oh, okay.
Great on that. No, his phone is off. His phone is off now. I told you that. I said if he didn't get in the car and come home, that was what was going to happen. And you said
he was on an ankle monitor, so if he was not allowed to be there, the parole board would have known. It would have been notified anyway, because it was
100%.
Yeah. I told you I was going to if you didn't do this. No, that's not what I said. His phone is still on right now. His service is working. He's not going to answer. He's not going to answer. I showed you. Oh, stop. Will you listen to me? Do you see the call log? He did not try to call Monique at all yesterday. He is lying to you. I sent you his entire call log. That's from AT&T. That's not from his iCloud account. That's from AT&T.
So he hacked his phone account and
that's not what the court order said. It said he specifically has to leave a voicemail. But it doesn't matter, because if he doesn't, that's fine. But I'm telling you right now, I have held everybody off. I said it's a private family matter. I'm sure he'll be back home. And everybody said We'll give him 24 hours. That is until 10 o'clock today, Mom. That's why I said he had until 10 a.m. today. Mom, it doesn't matter. They gave me until 10 a.m. The police.
So I think she's hung up on her. Wait, how long it takes for her
I'm
to
not
bring her back.
speaking to you anymore. Either my son is in my driveway at 10 a.m. or we're not talking anymore. Okay, that's fine. You don't want to talk to me? That's fine. Goodbye.
That's call number 2. Boom. How long for the next one?
So who's hanging up, her or the other end?
She just hung up then.
Oh, okay.
Why they couldn't show this, I don't know.
Makes it a bit.
Computer, and I said, fine, come and get it. I told him to be back after work. It's on the fucking camera.
Oh, had to turn that down a bit.
Shit, I don't give a flying fuck. Did I tell you?
Isn't that
Did I tell
woman?
you to let him stay at your house? Did I tell you to let him stay at your house? Have I or have I not told you multiple times in the past that he is never to stay at your house ever again? Not without my consent. And I have not consented. Do you hear me? You have Collin. Answer to me. Answer me.
She's talking to her
Do
mother.
you understand that
Yeah.
you do not have my consent to have Collin? Do you understand that? No, answer my question. Do you understand? No, I didn't. I never threw him out, and it's on the ring camera. Never threw him out. Never threw him out.
They're out.
Oh, she didn't throw him out. No way. Mate, if she screams like that, I'd probably kill her
Nice
too.
an hour. I heard it for 10 minutes.
Oh,
when I
really?
stabbed her.
Never threw him out. I didn't. You do not have my permission to have Collin in your home. Collin needs to be returned to me immediately. If when you arrive at your home, Collin is at your home, please inform him he is immediately. If neither of those things happen, and I find out that he is still in your custody, I am standing in front of my ring camera having this conversation with you on speakerphone. I expect Collin to be here back at my house. And if he's not back by 10 a.m., I'm going to take it if you are holding him hostage and not giving him back to me. Thank you. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.
So did the police say that he had to be back by 10 a.m. or she just did?
She did.
Yeah, is there such a thing as justifiable murder where you should get off because, you know, they're an asshole? Yeah, no.
Let's think of Ashley Benefield. Reverse the role.
Yeah.
Simple. She didn't have to shoot him.
But she didn't get off either.
No, but I think she was still innocent too. Well, I think she reacted out of self-defense because of battered wife syndrome, and I think that's what's happened here. It's just that the societal attitude towards domestic violence when it comes to men is completely different.
It is.
You're supposed to be the big tough guy, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine what his self-esteem is thinking. Oh my God, this little woman is harassing me.
I can drag your car, you can drag the other judge, and I'll just called me. And I was like, okay. So his aunt lives there. I tried to go in, looked, it's not, his car isn't there. So I don't know where he parked it, where he put it. I don't know because I sent the text that said, hey,
Gone
I'm
looking
your
for his
car.
car.
I just drive off with it. That was stupid because I'm signing this over to them and they said that they'll just report it stolen. So he's caught. So also, in order for him to have a driver's license, I have to give my consent. Okay, otherwise you have to wait until they're 18. The fact that his name is on the title is there.
So she buys him a car because he graduated early, and then takes it off him because he's run away to get away from it. Sells it.
Come on, Cass. Come on, Cass.
Oh, did he get arrested before for it?
No.
Well, that's
No.
well. He'd have signed. She did. He did. So when did he get arrested for? Did that get brought into the case that he previously
Not
got
that I've
arrested
heard.
for abusing her?
Not that I've heard.
Huh.
And the grandmother employed an attorney to defend him against her.
I mean, I definitely think she's been the victim.
I'm actually calling her this one.
I think that both are. They're both in a toxic relationship. But why, if she is in a toxic relationship,
No, I don't.
so unhappy,
Maybe.
why is she demanding him come home?
Yeah, that's right. Wouldn't you want him to bugger off?
Pull off.
Because she'd have nobody to nag.
That's
She'd
right.
have nobody to
it's
nag.
about control.
Mm.
He's not doing what she wants, and she's demanding it. And then, when he doesn't respond to that, she weaponizes every possible thing that she can. It's harassment. And I don't recall.
Collin Griffith, yeah, when he called in, I know he didn't
I'll
show up
have a look.
yesterday. Did he quit yesterday as well? I just need to know.
So
are they on
now? She's bringing
Sorry?
his employer. She's bringing his employer to see how he.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yep. She's got a Ring camera in his fucking
Is that
bedroom.
out for me? This is his mom because he hasn't come home. So we're trying to find him.
Making it out to sound like he's missing, right? She's ringing the boss up.
Mm.
He's missing. Hasn't come home. She knows exactly where he fucking is. If they abuse me, I wouldn't want them to come home. They can fucking stay away.
Yeah, that's exactly
You fuck
right.
off. Sorry. Yep.
We're not saying she's not allowed to ask him to come home.
Okay. Yeah, I just need to know Collin told him that he was quitting or what he said. Collin is missing and hasn't been home in almost 24 hours.
Missing. He hasn't been home in 24 hours.
Okay,
Telling
thank
his
you.
employer. The point of that is what? What do you obtain out of that?
Nothing.
Yeah. That's not about bringing him home. About making him look like he's an ass to his boss.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, isn't that intimidating and
harassment?
Shit too? Yeah.
Coercive behaviour. She's what do you call it? Collecting evidence.
Mm-hmm.
She's building her arsenal of weapons, any jet she can find.
closer to that microphone. That's this phone turned on. But you won't, and that's the problem.
She helped get her own
Sure.
justice.
He called me at 7:32 this morning and talked to me for 56 seconds and told me I was a crazy psychotic bitch and he wasn't leaving and that he was going to stay there with mama and that that's not a violation of his probation. I sent him a picture. Like, if he's sending you all these things, did he send you the pink picture that I sent to him that shows specifically, like, the pink sheet of paper they gave me that says he can leave the county to go visit his grandma? But it doesn't say he can leave the county to go visit his grandma, and that's what he thinks it means.
I don't agree with
He
you
thinks it
either,
means
that the
without
cameras
my
were
permission, he can
justified.
just leave and go and do that. Oh, yeah, I sent him that too. No, it doesn't, because I specifically said, how are you gonna live on your own? No, he just told our girls, no, I'm not leaving when I turn 18. You and I both know. Yes, I'm leaving. This is all. I guess I'm
So now in awaiting the verdict.
just sit back and stay with mom. You'll sit and eat. I go. Yeah, once the jury instructions are down, they it's verdict watch. Piece of shit that drives me crazy, or we're done. So he wants to do this. He wants to go to court. That's what he wants.
Okay, well,
He
I
wants
have to
it.
say goodbye.
That's what he wants.
All right, my love. Thank you for joining us. He was on the phone for 56
Thank
seconds.
you for going through.
56 seconds. Who says that?
Exactly.
All right, we'll have take 2. Do you want to do
Yeah.
it next Tuesday? Take
Yeah,
2?
we'll just do it next Tuesday. Cool.
All right,
Okay.
love.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Catch us.
See you, bye. I didn't change my phone. I didn't change my phone. No, I changed the voicemail to say that nobody could call me. That was all I did. No, Mom, you're a fucking moron. My phone was never disconnected because if you would have tried to send a text, it would have showed you that it would have gone through. That's setting a good example. I went onto YouTube, pressed play for the 5 minutes ago from the house. We already showed, he didn't show up to work yesterday, and it said, want to know where he went? The movies. I'll show you the receipt. He went to the movie theater. There you go. She's rung up the employer, and now she's using that information against him to the grandmother. He went to the movie theater. And you know what he's been doing all day while he's at your house? And he didn't go to the movie theaters. Because it's showing up every time he takes a screenshot of it on his iPad account. He's playing video games killing people. And I send those screenshots to you. So tell me how he's better off at your house where he's killing people. Pretend and making fun of it. And kidnapping them and having them tied to little chairs while he tortures them and kills them with other people in this little game scenario that he has. I sent you pictures of the screenshots where they're. I'm telling you right now. No, you're not! Because I'm driving up there. Listen to me. I'm going to be there before you. So it's going to go down before you even get there. I don't know what to tell you. It's going to go down before you even get there. Now remember, he turns up at the grandma's house and she's not there. She's down at the keys. And she's on her way. She tells him to go in and lets him in. And she's now saying that she's going to head down there and it's going to be on. I guess you can call Collin and tell him to run or try to run. Because I'm coming up there. I'm getting in the car. The car is sold. He can either get in the car with me and come back home. So she's limited his options now to return. She's sold his car. He can get in the car with me. So she's doing ultimatum. Then you better tell him that he needs to give me a goddamn phone call in 10 minutes. He has 10 minutes. No. He's answering your calls. He's not answering mine.
He's answering Lacey, not answering mine. He has me blocked. So are you gonna call my son and tell him what I just told you?
I'm just, if that is normal behavior for her, in the way that she speaks to him, the way that she treats him, the way that she treats her mother, her attitude, her demands, her irrational, to me, that's obsessive behavior. Obsessive. She rings the employer, gets what she wants, or doesn't get what she wants because he had been there at work, and then tells the mother he's been at the movies. Like, if you've got such a bad relationship with your son, why go to this extent? Why not say, all right, let's have a couple of days breather. Stay at mum's. Like, it doesn't make sense logically. Why would you want him back if you've been at each other? Especially when she knows that he has made threats or he has said things to that nature because the father told her. Something ain't fitting.
Call him and call me back.
I don't think he was scared of being analysed by her, but there's lots of things that can torture you psychologically. If I had to listen to that all fucking day, every day, I'm surprised he lasted till 17. Who was actually trying to make the decision for her?
Please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hi, Collin. This is your mom. I am just calling you because I know you talked to Detective Lacey. She told you that you needed to be home today, and apparently you said, no, you're not coming home. And so I guess you were explaining the situation, and that if you don't come home, you are going to be charged with violating your probation. So I'm just warning you, I am on my way to you to pick you up because you're not allowed to stay away from me like this. You're not allowed to be a mama's house, and I have every right to come and pick you up. So I'm coming to pick you up. Get in the car.
I have every right to come and pick you up. So I'm worried about you, son. I'm concerned about you. I don't want you to get in trouble for breaking your probation. No. I have the right to come and pick you up. So she's rung the police. How many phone calls is that in 10 minutes? She has the right to ask him to come home. She has the right to. She doesn't have the right to threaten, harass, and abuse him. Sorry. She's the one threatening, not him. She's doing all the aggression, the aggressive behaviour at this point. Yeah, you probably have it. Did Doug Benefield do anywhere near this amount of stuff to Ashley? This is obsessive. She's ringing again. No. Were they threats or were they warnings? Were they saying, Mum, you need to stop? Who knows? Like, I can't explain it. But if someone treated you that way for however long. How long would it take you to say, shut the fuck up? Minor or not, no one should be treated that way, ever. No one should be spoken to that way. No one should be disrespected that way. It's reaction and action. It's so we're judging the reaction when we're not taking the step back and looking at the action prior. So the reaction is caused by it's determined by exposure to a prior set of events and circumstances. So what he has seen and heard and experienced in his life, and by the sounds of it, that with all of the things, like, I would never ever think to put a Ring camera in my children's bedroom. And every room in the house, just so that she can keep tabs on. It's only her and him there. What the fuck is she going to keep tabs on? For crying out loud. You know, the fact that so you're more likely to accept the assertion of domestic violence on a woman rather than a man because of the societal values and the fact that he's stronger, taller. You know, that's not his fault. He was born that way. Doesn't mean that that should be held against him in his reaction, if that makes sense. That, you know, you think back to what is it? What is your role as a parent? What is it that you should do and provide as a parent, a responsible parent to a child? A nurturing, safe, happy, supported environment with unconditional love. You know, obviously food, shelter, water, clothing, you know, the usuals. You're supposed to give them boundaries, teach them self-respect, self-love, self-worth. There's none of that there. Nothing. None of it. It's all derogatory. It's almost like he's a possession. That's how I see her talking about him. And it's his perception of the level of threat. And that perception will increase every time this happens. And it will just accumulate and multiply. You know, Doug Benefield was the master of it, and he made it look like he was just being helpful. You know, oh, no, I'll offer to come down and help you move your stuff, rah, rah, rah. No, he just wanted to know what she was fucking up to, and he could make sure that she wasn't seeing anyone else while he was there. Like, that's control as well. I just think because it's if you think, all right, swap it around so that it's the father that's doing this to a daughter and she's claiming self-defense. What would your attitude be then? You've got to you're supposed to, as a parent, provide a loving environment, a safe and nurturing environment in which to maximize the potential for your child to thrive and to be loved and accepted. You're supposed to educate them. You're supposed to not just intellectually, but teach them life skills, survival skills, not how to manipulate. They lead by example. You are a product of your environment, whether you like it or not. You've got to establish their boundaries and teach them what's right from wrong. Well, That is just teaching him how to stalk. You know, she's supposed to be fostering self-worth and self-love and dignity and respect. And I don't see any of that. I don't see any of that. You're supposed to protect them too. Like, there is no compassion in any of that. Where's the compassion as a mother? If she's really, really worried about him, there would be, come on, son, you know, I really don't want to see you get into trouble here. Let's you know, work together and work this out. No. Let's take your car off you. Let's take your phone off you. Let's threaten this. Let's threaten that. Police said this. Police said that. Threaten the mother. Me. She's controlling him financially. She's controlling him emotionally. She's manipulating. She's blackmailing. It's not a parental attribute. I'm sorry. At all. And he is a product of his environment. If your dad takes you down to Walmart every Saturday, and every Saturday he steals something, and then you get a phone call, or your mother gets a phone call because you've been arrested for stealing something at Walmart, who's to blame? Just say.
Come back and we got his shit together. Yes, I did. Okay, it doesn't matter. Check your text. Okay, because it never said that via text. So how fucking fun is this? I'm on my way. So
Yeah, she put a gun to his head as well. Where's that? Where's that in the parenting manual? I watched my hand gun to my mum's head. Oh, yeah, see? And how has that affected you? You know? Are you anti-guns now? Every time you see a gun, you have a panic attack? That's the trigger. That's hopefully only happened once. What if something like that happened? It might not be as significant, but what if a lot of little things happened constantly over years? How would that make you feel and perceive your environment? And no, she didn't deserve to die for it. I'm not saying that his behaviour was acceptable, same as Ashley Benefield, you know. But the process of thought in that perception of where he's at about the threat that is being, because she's escalating. This whole conversation, she escalates. Now, can you imagine what it's like, what point she's at when he gets home? Because he has absolutely defied her for how long? So she's worked herself up big time.
or not? Do I need to wait for the police to get there? Okay.
Yeah, but they've got to teach that. You can't just expect them to have it if you don't give it. Yeah, it is real abuse, but it doesn't have to be that extreme, to be abuse.
It actually is less. Go ahead. He has work from 4:30.
Is he a runaway? In her mind, yes. Or has he gone to create some distance, to create some space for them to both cool off? Isn't that a right of someone too, to have peace and quiet, to have a solitary moment? Because I'm damn sure I know I would want to get away from that.
To 8 today. 4:30 to 8:30. So that's
Fucking hell. Oh. All right. All right, you win. Exactly. Right? There you go. For the father, I think that was still from the father. They hadn't charged him but I think they'd released. He was originally taken into custody, and I think instead of charging him, they've put him on like supervised leave or something, like, you know what I mean? He didn't want to clean the candy out of his room. Well, then, fuck. But that's what I mean. Like, they've said that her house was immaculate. So can you imagine what her expectations are too? Like, you know, he could probably leave a crumb somewhere and she'd go nuts. Absolutely not. You can't tell me this is not obsessive compulsive behavior. Even just a little bit. Give me just a little bit. No. No, I think it was to do with the dad, Don. And then explain to me why she did not do anything with the CCTV footage that apparently proves that he had something to do, but like with the father's death was intentional. Why? Why did she hold on to it? Why didn't she give that to authorities when she found it? What's the point? Why bring it out now? And you weren't, hang on. My mum would flap up over a mess and ran to my grandma's and refused to come home, and the grandma was helping me avoid going home. Ah, okay, so that's the, all right. So do you think your grandmother did the right or the wrong thing? Yeah, okay. But if she's really protecting him, where is the compassion? Where is that caregiving, nurturing attitude? I don't hear any of that. If that was the case, she would be saying, please, Colin, please pick up the phone. I'm so worried about you. Just please don't fuck this up. I really want you to come home. I want you to be safe. I don't want you to go into jail and break your probation. Not, I'm going to get those CCTV footages out now and I'm going to use them against you if you don't do what I say. No, that's not tough love. That's manipulation. Blackmail right there.
He has 9 minutes to call and tell me that. I mean, I'm getting in the car right now. I mean, I'm getting back in the car
and she's already threatened that it's going to be on when she gets down there.
You haven't called me and told me anything?
Is that a threat?
But that's not how it works, because he still has to go see Monique, and he sent Monique an email saying that he knows he violated his probation. You have, and it's
so she answers emails
less than 7 minutes. Goodbye.
Not reasonable. She's not even being reasonable with the mother. Mum, can you please talk him out of staying there? I don't want him to get into trouble. Mum, they're ganging up on her. Oh, the world's against me. It's a conspiracy. She's angry. She's throwing things around. She's shoving things, and bosses won't come out. Oh, on the phone again. Woo.
Come on, guys. Here's my bear. Yeah, yeah. He won't answer when I call, so good luck. Tell him to do this replay. Tell him to do this. I thought he was going to work. No.
So
I don't do that all the time.
this testimony started at 5:10, 5 hours 10 minutes, and we're at 5:38. How many times has she called him?
That's a lie. Do you plan on going to there and telling them that I throw him out?
Oh, yeah. Look, I think they're all nut jobs. All of them. Absolutely. Her mum didn't take him away. He left to shelter at hers. She wasn't even home. She was down at the Keys. What if she's freaking out? Why is she ringing his boss? Why is she ringing AT&T getting his phone records?
Was the last video that the jury saw the last video that captured Kathy alive?
Yes.
And did she leave the house in the clothes that she would die in?
Yes.
All right, so that's the attitude. That's the level of frustration that she's at. She's threatened to go down there and get him because she sold his car. She's got a right. And then when he does come home, things escalate.
And did she have the brownish, yellowish Kate Spade backpack purse kind of over her shoulder?
She did.
And did you see that at the crime scene?
I did.
Was it soaked in blood?
It had blood on it, yes.
Should we go back and listen to the medical examiner about what the injuries were? And you want to have a listen? Absolutely. More power to you, Elizabeth. Yep. That's one way to react, yeah. One way. But you can't tell me that hasn't affected you. It hasn't swayed you and had an impact on your life in some way. It has to have.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There you go.
Good morning, Dr. Diravan. May you please introduce yourself?
And do you have a relationship, just out of interest, with your dad now? I'm tipping you don't. But how would you feel if he treated you like that now? What lengths would you go to?
Up to the jury and spell your name for the record.
My full name is Dr. David Fintan, Fintan, Garvan, G for golf, A-R-A, V for Victor, A-N.
Tell the jury about your profession.
So I'm currently working in District 10, which is this area, as a medical examiner. A medical examiner is a forensic pathologist. My qualifications start back. I completed my PhD in medical toxicology in 1994 in Trinity College, Dublin, Ireland.
You're good.
I completed medical school.
Education, that's great.
When we have all that information back, and it often takes weeks, nothing got to do with us. It just takes weeks for laboratories to do what they have to do. We will then pull all that information together, taking into account the narrative, the scene, medical examination, the various results. We will then form an opinion as to what was the cause of death and under what context that death took place. So each case takes many hours. I would do approximately 300 cases a year, autopsies, and I will do external examinations only on probably another 200, and I will review another 600 or 700 that I would decide I'm not doing anything with. So that's how many cases
10,
we would
15, 20,
constantly
25. There's another 25 live streams up on Christine's. I can't get past her name again. Fucking, oh my God. One drives me mental.
The external examination of a deceased individual sounds pretty obvious, but how do you do the internal examination?
The internal examination is an intrusive procedure, and we're aware of that. That's why we don't make the decision lightly. It requires that we have to open the body. You have to open the chest, the abdomen, the head, look into the pelvis, which is part of the abdomen examination. And if we need to do, there are many other specialist tests that we can do if we need to, which would require further intrusive methods, but they're done with as much skill as we can, so that when the bodies are returned to the families, that all of that's hidden. That's out of view. We try to close it up so that you wouldn't know the difference. But it is a very involved procedure. It's manual. It's not easy work, and it's tiring.
Now, in the normal course of an autopsy, are photographs taken of the deceased victim both internally and externally?
Yes.
And in this particular case, I'm going to have the opportunity to show you state exhibits 125 to 155 a little bit later. Will that be helpful for you to be able to point out and explain some of the injuries and some of your findings that Kathy Griffith suffered?
Yes.
Now, in this particular case, the death happened on a Sunday, September 8th. Describe to the jury the process by which you receive the body and when you typically conduct an autopsy.
So the only reason why this case is with me is because that was my week. There's no other reason. We work on rotations. So I would have first met this case on Monday morning. I would not necessarily have heard about it on the Sunday. I don't remember, to be honest with you. I just don't. So when I went in on Monday morning, her name plus other names were on that list that morning, and that's the first time I would get to read the police report to find out that's the beginning of the narrative. In all homicide cases, police do attend those cases, the investigating detectives, which is very useful because then I can have a much more one-to-one conversation. So that's where I would have got my information.
Do you work for the state attorney's office? Do you work for me?
I do not.
Do you work for law enforcement?
I do not.
Who do you work for?
I work for the public.
All right, Dr. Garvin, the autopsy that you performed on Catherine Griffith, describe to the jury a little bit about the room or operating location where you do your autopsy.
So our autopsy suite is it's a custom built place. It's got two stations where we can conduct our examinations. We tend to use one. It's an open. It's no different from an operating area. We don't have to have the high clean room specifications of an operating theater, but it's no different. There's a table and there's ventilation and there's instruments and they're all laid out and so on and so forth. So it would look quite similar to an operating table.
Now, before we get to the cause of death and the manner of death towards the end of your testimony, I want to ask you about your autopsy findings. What can you tell the jury about the injuries that Kathy Griffith suffered?
Do you want me to go through all of them in detail or just a summary?
First, we can start with a summary.
So the autopsy findings, sharp force injury to the right side of the neck, bruising to her lower limbs, bruising to the posterior right shoulder, left elbow, back of both hands. There was an incised wound, and I'm going to explain the difference between an incised wound and a stab wound in a second. Between her thumb and index finger of the right hand. So here, there's an incised wound that was 1.5 centimeters. It was gaping if you open the hand, so 1 centimeter. A stab wound is a wound that is deeper than it is longer on the surface. An incised wound is a sharp force injury as well, that's longer on the surface than it is deeper. They're the opposite. So in an incised wound, the sharp blade or the sharp surface has come across the skin, but has not gone deep into it. A stab wound is the opposite. It's penetrated and gone into the actual tissue.
Was that gaping incised wound, was that a fresh wound?
Yes.
And describe to the jury why that is.
Because it's there's no evidence of healing. It's gaping, it's opened, and dry blood in it.
Now, is that gaping incised wound consistent with being a defensive wound?
It's possible that, defensive wounds are, so that's a term that's used, and I know it's thrown around a lot. We personally don't write down classic for defensive wound because we don't know precisely what the circumstances of it happened. But let me explain what the greater points of a defensive wound are. Defensive wounds is a term that's used when there's a series of injuries that can be bruises, can be incised wounds, it can be any other cuts or abrasions that are present on certain locations. And the reason why there's certain locations is that you have to understand that fundamentally the human will or the human body is designed to survive. Everything about us when we're under attack, when we're in a fight or flight situation, regardless of the circumstance, that if the human person is conscious enough to understand that they're in a struggle for their life for whatever reason, they will engage in activities which will try to help them survive. If you're under attack from an assailant, it is quite typical if the person is swinging something at you, baseball bat, fist, whatever, you will tend to try and protect yourself. And in doing so, certain parts of your body become exposed to that force that's coming at you as you try to defend yourself. In the arms is typically here. If it's a bat or a stick or something that's coming at you. They may also be on the legs. Typically, and it's more common in women, if they're being attacked, but it happens in men too, they will tend to offer the outside of the leg as they're trying to protect their sexual organs, or they're trying to protect themselves if they're under attack. So we will often find wounds on the outside of the legs, not the inside. In knife injuries, when someone is under attack, where there's a knife or a sharp implement involved, it's common that the person, unfortunately, mistakenly, will try to grab that knife thinking that this is somehow going to be of help to them. It isn't really, generally, but in doing so, if they grab that blade and then that blade is pulled, you'll often find incised wounds across the palm of the hand, or it can be here, depending on how the knife is grabbed. Or it could very well be that as a hand goes up to defend against the oncoming blade, that blade just comes through here and then cuts as it comes through. Because I don't know specifically, we don't have a video of how exactly those injuries occurred. We tend not to use that term, defensive injuries, but that is what's meant by them. They're present in certain locations under certain circumstances that may indicate that the person who is now deceased was trying to defend themselves at the time of the assault.
Now, you mentioned that Kathy had bruises on her upper and lower limbs. Does that mean arms and legs?
Yeah, so again, I know it seems a bit impersonal, but we say the lower limbs and the upper limbs because we're talking about the whole arm. When we want to talk more specifically, we tend to use the anatomical location, whether or not it's the anterior elbow or the posterior forearm or whatever it might be. But upper limb is the entire limb from here to the fingers.
What were you able to determine about the bruises on Kathy regarding whether they were old bruises or new bruises or a combination?
Yeah, so so dating of bruises is not it's not an exact science. We do not, TV shows I know do that all the time. That's not reality. What I can say is that these bruises, there were quite a number of them present. All we can say about bruises is that if the color yellow is present, we can say that it's definitely not, there wasn't an immediate before death bruise, because yellow would suggest that at least 15, 16, 17 hours has passed since that bruise was present. It could be weeks, but at least 17 or 18 hours has passed. That's the best we can do in reality. But all these bruises in this particular case did look fresh in that there was no color change. It doesn't look like they had gone or had the opportunity. The person wasn't alive long enough for the body to try and heal or start healing a bruise. So that's the best I can say to you.
Dr. Graham, before we get to the photographs, what can you describe? How can you describe Kathy's neck wound to the right side of her neck?
So the wound on the right side of the neck is a large stab wound. It's gaping, and gaping means that it's an obvious. Once you see it, it can't be anything else. It's an open wound. It was 4.3 centimeters long and 1 centimeter apart. It's 2.5 centimeters right off the midline, so approximately here, and 23 centimeters from the top of her head. So we do that just to give you an anatomical location. So approximately here on her neck is where it was. The wound is in a 9 to 3 o'clock orientation, meaning that if you look at a clock, 9 to 3 means it's kind of looking straight when the body's in the right. So it's coming straight across here. And there's a square.
Yeah, we all have a Brady Bunch, don't we? Eh? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Have you got the link, sweetheart, so I can have a read? According to reports. Now, remember, they've accused her of lying as well. Grandmother witnessed the incident and said it wasn't self-defense. All right, let's go and have a listen to. It's 5 o'clock. Whoops. So, are they on lunch or are they on verdict watch now?
You for your service. You are now discharged. You need to wait on the bailiff because he's going to take you out this back door. So it's just a moment.
All right, so they're deliberating now. And the court's got on break. That's it. All right, let me try and find this, if they've got it. I've been looking and looking and looking. This Megan Boswell. Not there. Not there. That's not there. Let me just check. There's a couple of little channels that had it. And WJHL. Now 1 minute ago. 1 minute ago. I shit you not.
Day 2 of jury selection is underway in the Boswell murder trial. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kelly Gatz. And Megan Boswell faces numerous charges in the death of her 15-month-old daughter, Evelyn. Those charges include first-degree murder and 2 felony counts of felony murder. ABC Tri-City's Ansley Daniel has been in the courtroom all morning and has the latest. Ansley, what can you tell us?
2 minutes. That's how long it.
Well, Kelly, day 2 of jury selection for the Megan Boswell trial is going much faster than what it did yesterday. Yesterday, it took the entire day to get through 40 people. At this point today, we are about through 30 people. Now, the judge says they are hoping to get to 30 potential jurors before going to the next phase of the selection process. So far, 29 people have been sent back to the juror room. The prosecutors are the first to ask the potential jurors questions today. They seem to be moving a little bit faster by starting with asking whether or not they can be sequestered. There were actually a few people who hadn't heard anything about the case and didn't even know what it was about. Yesterday, everyone who walked in had some sort of knowledge about the case. Now, there are between 15 and 20 people left to go through this afternoon before the next panel comes in. It's unclear as to whether or not we'll get to that panel, but at this point, it could be likely that we could have a jury seated by later this afternoon. Live in Bluntville, Ansley Daniel, News Channel 11.
Well, it looks like that's not going to start till tomorrow. Cool. I've got the indictment somewhere. I do. Sir, where in that statement is the presumption of innocence? Isn't that what the justice system is all about? Now, where did I put the indictment? This is on the father. What? Why is there a dick pic in my... Are you for real? 4th of the 10th, 22. This is a new computer. Right. Should I click on it? What the fuck is that? Dick pic. No. Not going there. All right. I have. Is that motion and eliminate that one? Is that it? Yes. All right. Let's present this one. Share screen. All right. This is the defendant's motion in limine regarding the death of the defendant's father in Oklahoma. ASAP Rocky. Fuck you, ASAP Rocky. Oh, okay. Comes down to defendant Collin Griffith by and through undersigned counsel moves this honourable court for an entry of an order in limine precluding the introduction of any reference or testimony concerning any of the matters set forth herein. Specifically, defendant seeks to preclude any reference to the manner of death of defendant's father in Oklahoma on February 14th, 23, how it allegedly occurred, the investigation into the manner of death, or any possible legal consequences. As grounds for this motion, the defendant states as follows. The defendant is charged in this case with the kidnapping and first-degree murder of his mother. The allegation is that defendant stabbed his mother in the grandmother's kitchen. In his grandmother's kitchen. Is that where it happened? So she went down there to get him. I don't remember that. Wow. In February 23, defendant was living with his father, Charles Griffith, in Oklahoma. February 14th, defendant allegedly shot his father after his father attacked him with a knife. Defendant was initially detained in relation to the death of his father, but was released on a GPS monitor and $50,000 bond. After further investigation, the prosecutor in Oklahoma informed the court that they had no charges to bring against the defendant, and he was released. The defendant then moved to Florida with his mother. There are a variety of issues between defendant and his mother over the intervening months. In early September, Catherine Griffith kicked 17-year-old defendant out of her home. Defendant went to his maternal grandmother's home in Albandale at her suggestion and with her permission when his mother kicked him out. Despite kicking defendant out of her home, Catherine Griffith travelled to Susan Desmond's home on September the 8th, 2024. About an hour after Catherine Griffith arrived, defendant called 911 hysterical and crying. He told the operator that he and his mother had fought and she was stabbed and bleeding. So after that, all those phone calls and all that shit, she went down there. The operator instructed the defendant to do CPR, which he did. Catherine Detman was pronounced dead. Yeah, the matters set forth above are in admissible for any purposes in proper and timely objection, in that they have no bearing upon or relevance to the issues in this case. Even if there is some level of relevancy of the evidence to an issue of proof in this case, the prejudicial impact to the accused defendant would far outweigh the alleged probative value of the evidence, and the evidence should therefore be excluded at trial. Permitting comments to jurors or prospective jurors, or presenting testimony of witnesses, or making other offers of evidence concerning these matters would prejudice the jury, blah, 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 blah. All right, where can we find, so if this was at, because Florida's easy, Polk County, Florida. Let's have a look. Let's do some digging, shall we? I want Polk County Clerk of Courts. Let's see what records we can find. Public records search. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing, sorry. All right. So we want records. What's down here? Search court records. I am not a robot. Stairs. Is that stairs? No. So it's we're searching previous stuff, aren't we? Juvenile? I don't know. What would it be under? Circuit civil includes domestic relations and civil appeals. So if there was going to be any, it would be circuit civil for domestic violence, yeah? Party last name, Griffith. Party first name, Collin. So there's nothing under civil. Let's see if we've got any felony. Okay. Hopefully we should get some paperwork here. Alrighty. It's the docket. Can you all see that? Let me see if I can make it bigger. How do I make that bigger? How do I zoom in on that? Can anyone see? Can you all see that or not? I don't know how to make it bigger. Do I make it bigger? All right. All right. If I read them through, let me know which ones you want me to open because I don't really know what I'm looking for. So, the first one is indictment filed. Then there's a capias issued, capias served, booking sheet. Next one is first appearance, hearing order. Next one is demand, notice for discovery filed, written plea of not guilty, reservation of right to challenge indictment. Then we have court notification, notice of confidential information within court filing, order regarding non-mandatory remote appearance for status conference, order rescheduling status. No, we don't want that. We want information. Supplemental discovery. Call them out. Call it out. EDF, which one are we looking for? We want the charge sheet, like back up here. What's a capias? Let's have a look, shall we? All right, you're hereby commanded to take into custody Collin Griffith. It's his charge sheet for arrest. Okay, no, we don't want that. What's this indictment filed? This is his grand jury indictment. Basically says on about the 8th of September, he did unlawfully. Okay, so that validates the charge. Now, what's the booking sheet? All right. Bond, court case, docket. No, that's not it. I want the information. Discovery. Demand for disclosure of material. No, that's just their requests. Supplemental discovery. List of witnesses. Okay. Defendant discovery disclosure filed. Oh, list of defense witnesses. That's it. Far out. Transcripted deposition of Nancy K. Jones. Who is that? Deposition of Sally Kate Bell. Order authorizing and ordering the release of Oklahoma records and protective order. Search warrants. Order to authorize release of confidential information of DCF Child Protection Team. Oh. I like that they've got some transcripts in there. I wonder if there is. There you go. Transcribed file hearing. Transcribed file hearing on the 23rd of January. Evidence exhibit report. Wonder what that will be. The knife, the clothing. All right, yeah, it's just a list of all the evidence. Photos of blood pool, 911 call CD, police body cam, autopsy photos. That's what I'd like to see. Hmm. Yeah. Supplemental discovery. Nope. I don't know. I can't find anything. All right, that's on with the dockets. What about the parties? Deposition. Ooh. Additional charge data. State Attorney's Office. What I might do is I might post this link in chat, and you may all go and ponder it and explore it, because this is the records for this case. Here we go. Which will take you directly to this search where I've just been. And I will copy and paste Uta Hef's so that I can have a read of that myself, because I would like to do that. So yeah, if you can find anything in there of interest, drop it into the staff chat on Discord. All right, this is Uta Hef's link. Hang on. Stop. Begin. Go back. Sound. Full screen. Share screen. Share this tab instead. Okay. This is what Law had. Wasn't against his mum. It was to handle his TV case. Yeah, I wanted to know why she held on to it for so long and didn't do anything about it. William McLeod? Who's William McLeod? That's all right. I've just been trying to find some information, and I found his Polk County clerk's records, which I've dropped the link in chat, and I've just found your link, which I'm about to play before I sign off. But I have no idea what these two are talking about.
17-year-old Port Charlotte boy is charged with stabbing his mother to death. You are looking at pictures of the mother. What's even more shocking, police in Oklahoma arrested him last year for killing his dad.
The Polk County Sheriff just shared disturbing details about this boy and his mother who was killed. NBC2's Kennedy Mason is live there in Charlotte County. And Kennedy, a lot to go through. Walk us through what happened.
So this is where Collin Griffith and his mom, Catherine, lived in Port Charlotte. Now, I spoke to a neighbor who lives 2 houses down. She says while he had a very mild temper, he always fought with his mom and even beat her up 6 months ago. Now, it was actually in Polk County Sunday night where he killed her. Hear how it all happened.
He met the deputies outside and he was calm, cool, collected, not upset, and he had blood on him. What we found inside was this knife. This knife is 12 inches long, and of the 12 inches, 8 inches of that is the blade. So he's saying that his mother fell on this knife.
Collin was on probation after beating up his mom. He violated that probation going to his grandmother's house by Auburndale. His mom came up there to check on
Right.
him.
Okay.
That's
So
when Collin...
that doesn't make sense even more. So he's been charged on probation for beating her up. And she's upset because he goes to her mum's? Make it make sense.
Collin stabbed her in the head with a knife.
Collin grabs his mother by the hair and drags her into the house. Just about 2 hours later, that's when we receive a 911 call where Collin said, I've had a very, very long fight with mom, and she fell on a knife and she's bleeding from the neck.
Police arrested Collin in February of 2023 for killing his dad, but those charges were later dropped.
She looks about 12.
CCSO said their
She's a hottie.
juvenile unit had multiple interactions with Collins. I'm live in Port Charlotte. Kennedy Mason, NBC2.
There you go. She's down your way in here. Kennedy Mason. Google it. I want to just go back to the start of that.
We are here.
Stop. Because they made a comment. Go away. Where is it? How do I get back? Bugger, how do I get back? Oh, it won't let me. I'm going to have to go and get the link again. There. Come on. Come to mama. All right, now listen to what is said after the ad. Come on. Chop, chop. What the? Just play already. What is going on? Oh my God. So it's not letting me go back into it. You for real? Why? Why? Okay, here it is. Got like 20 tabs open now, but whatever. Share the screen. All right, I want you to listen to what they say about Collin.
17-year-old Port Charlotte boy is charged with stabbing his mother to death. You are looking at pictures of the mother. What's even more shocking, police in Oklahoma arrested him last year for killing his dad.
The Polk County Sheriff just shared disturbing details about this boy and his mother who was killed. NBC2's Kennedy Mason is live there in Charlotte County. And Kennedy, a lot to go through. Walk us through what happened.
So this is where Collin Griffith and his mom, Catherine, lived in Port Charlotte. Now, I spoke to a neighbor who lives 2 houses down. She says while he had a very mild temperament,
he had a very mild temperament. Sorry, I'm scratching my foot. Ah, is that why you're interested in this case? Well, it starts tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, they're still picking the jury today. Oh, the itchiest foot. My foot is so swollen. All right. Well, I think we've dived as deep as we're going to. The link is in there for the records. If you want to have a squiz on Polk County Records online, it's free resources, and it takes you directly to his case, this particular case with all these charges. I just didn't know. There's heaps of paperwork there. So if you find anything interesting, pop it in staff chat in Discord. All right. Well, I will keep an eye on the jury watch, verdict watch, sorry, and we'll update you. I'm still keeping my eye out on this, the socialite heart attack, but by the sounds of it, the ME that testified yesterday, he was a ticking time bomb. So there was so much wrong with his heart. I might actually do a little might do a little presentation on that. You know me. But yeah, the things that she listed, oh my God, my hat's crooked and everything. I'm way off kilter today. All right, medallons, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I will, when those streams become available, we'll get onto that next trial. That's the Megan Boswell one. I did the intro yesterday. And we're still following the social heart attack one, socialite heart attack. And then we're going to go into Naziah Harris. Oakley dokley. Stay warm, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and don't be good. Be good at it. Bye-bye, my loves. Mwah.
Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule and the defense rests.